would be able to generate its own Akasha Merkaba, and in that case it would literally shift into full alignment with a different time cycle, which would be the inner time cycles. This is a path of evolution that would be a leap. All right, the planet's not going to do that this time because there's not enough time in this stellar activation cycle for it to reverse mutate its radio body that much. There's so much damage here that it can get part of itself through and in alignment. And the part of Earth that can go under this type of Merkaba and can hold these frequencies will be stabilized and balanced by literally linking with the inner Earth templates that are stabilized. There will be some of us that are able to heal fast enough, because speed is a thing here right now. Even though time is not a reality, when you're in a body that's in a set of flashline sequences that are a time cycle, it is very real while you're in there, and your body is still in there. And to get yourself out requires certain things to happen. Some of us won't be able to get it activated fast enough where we could actually go through in the next 10-year period into inner Earth. But some of us will. It all depends on what you came in with, really. We could all do the same exact thing from now until 2012, when the gates begin to fully open, and have completely different results, because it depends on the karmic pattern, the karmic miasmic pattern. That is, to what degree has this damage been done, and how much of it is done in other life cycles that are going on right now that's coming up into your life cycle right now. When we go on the path of ascension, which is the path to get our Stargate capacity back, it's kind of interesting. There's ways of evolution. People say, oh, well, I'm not going to take on the karma of my other selves. I'm just going to deal with my life this time. Well, good luck. You're going to be stuck in this life this time because your other selves aren't somebody different. If you want to get yourself together and clear yourself, that means them too. That means the karmic miasmic imprint that's coming up. That means the part of you that got stuck back in Atlantis and did some dumb stuff because you couldn't figure out what else to do because it was really dire straits back then, and it did some things that got itself in worse trouble and got more reversals. That has to heal too. When we begin to work with radio body healing, when we begin to work with radio body activation, that implies healing, and that implies you're going backward and forward in time simultaneously, aligning your whole set of selves, all minimum of 1,728 of yourselves that are coming out of your avatar imprint, back with their original divine blueprint. So all of you can pull yourselves together and have the ability to turn into light and move between time vectors. So what we're hoping to do is get to the point where we can build an Akasha Merkaba field. That would mean we would be able to heal progressively, step by step, these things. We would use the Manau codes to progressively heal these blockages, get rid of them, and they would make these pop. Now what, I keep asking guys, what are our atoms going to look like when we actually do this? If we work with these technologies, and we work with them enough where we've built a critical mass frequency, where we have put more frequency in on the Manau code correct pattern than on what's being held in the body in the reversal, okay, our cells are going to start not mutated. That means we're going to have our little neutron windows back. That means all these fields, these electromagnetic fields and neutral fields that are around different parts of the atom. I mean, here we have our, let's say we have the neutrons here, the natural neutron field here. We have the protons here. We have the electrons here. That's what we're seeing now. What's going to happen when these guys start to come back to life? What are we going to be looking at when scientists look at our atomic structure? Would we look different? At some point, we would. At some point, we would look like aliens as far as if they looked at the DNA. Because what's going to happen is progressively, those chopped up chromosomes that they're counting as full chromosomes right now, they're going to start putting themselves back together. There's also going to be an amazing phenomenon that starts to take place, which is they're going to find that some hydrogen atoms do have neutrons. And that's going to turn it into something else. With the neutrons that would be in the center of hydrogen atoms are actually in the next level up. They exist now. They exist as, where they go? Where's our neutrons? Down here. They exist as ionons, all right, in density 2. What's happened is their manifest counterpart down here has been shut off. But once these things are healed, these blockages are healed, this will begin to regenerate what was supposed to be here. So we will get changes happening in the hydrogen atom. This is going to have some interesting effects on a planetary level as well. because there's going to be effects at some point when the planet goes through its natural clearing cycle of a stellar activation cycle, where something that resembles what scientists call hydrogen burning begins to take place, and things are converted. The atmosphere begins to convert to other things. Now, hydrogen burning, if you think about stars, suns, you know, all that flamey hot stuff that the Hubble space thing shows us pictures of, well, that gives you an idea of what hydrogen burning looks like. Now, if you have a certain type of Merkaba, you would not see the flames, you would not feel the heat. It would simply pass through you. However, if you didn't have enough frequency within the body, you would actually experience the process inside and outside. Now, inside hydrogen burning would mean vaporization. Poof, spontaneous combustion. You'd find yourself not manifest very quickly, and you'd find yourself scattered across a very large field of whatever density you did that in, as little units of consciousness trying to figure out where they go. Where's the rest of me? Right? There are things going to take place that are going to take place on the planet that are going to get really weird as we move toward 2012. There's going to be strange phenomena. There's going to be things, if you start to see things appearing and disappearing, like you could have swore you saw something over in the corner of your room. It's been there. It's always been there. What do you mean it's not there? It's not there. Where did it go? Well, it phased out temporarily. And you may find a week later it phases back in and it's there again. This is happening. You're not losing your mind if you start to see these things. Things are starting to begin to shift, and they're beginning to oscillate between, trying to find what they actually vibrate most closely with. And they'll sometimes pop out of this reality, go into one of the others, maybe parallel or maybe an adjacent one, and then they'll float back in here again. And you can have, jewelry loves to do this, jewelry with crystals on it. Crystals on the planet are bored. They are so bored that their consciousness, they're so bored that if you leave them sitting there for too long, they'll start to play games. And they also know that it's a good way to get you to pay attention. All right, I'm not getting any energy. I'm getting no love energy here. It's like I might as well, be a cobweb. They don't care about me anymore. Okay. So you'll find your crystal disappears. It might start by just falling on the floor repeatedly. If you have it on a stand or something, they will jump. They will get sick of sitting there and not being paid attention to, and they will let you know they're alive by doing weird stuff. Jumping, or having the cat happen to carry it across the room and bury it in the backyard. Right? They will call out to have experiences happen. Now, since crystalline structure is the basic core of all things, when we go back to our chelons and our standing scalar wave grids that are built on little crystallized chelon units of thought, we're going to start finding other things jumping around and getting bored too. The getting bored is coming from feeling movement of the higher frequencies of energy coming into the planet. All right, we're all feeling these movements. Our cells are getting bored and they're getting jumpy because they don't know exactly which set of frequencies they co-resonate with yet. So we're going to find strange stuff, and it's going to be, some of it will be fun. I mean, literally, I've had this phenomena happen, and I knew what it was, so I just kind of chuckled to myself when it happened. But then a number of years later, I had a lady write to me. She says, "Am I losing my mind? Because I'm going to explain to you something that's been happening to me. Happened when I was a kid, and then it went away, and I felt good. But now it's come back again, and I'm really scared that I'm crazy. And should I go to the doctor and get put on drugs because I think I'm losing my mind?" She described to me a phenomena of cloud castles, of seeing cities in the clouds manifesting. Literally, she'd look at, not all the time, and not looking for them, but she would have them pop into her awareness spontaneously, where she'd be driving or something in the country, and all of a sudden that cloud formation over there, it turned into a city that was sitting on a continent that was sitting with water around it, floating in the sky here. I've seen these things happen. We're beginning to pick up the matter level densities from Tara. We're getting bleed-throughs right now. This is just some of it. As we work with radio body, we're going to get more of it. So be prepared for it and realize this is part of what it means. Eventually, we would be able to, as masters, once we get ourselves healed and get our consciousness back in body, we would be able to choose which space we wanted to go into. We would be able to go, okay, I see, yeah, all right, that's, what's it called up there? Yeah, okay, that cloud formation over there, that'll take me to this place, the corner of whatever on Terra, right? I think I'll go that way. And there's a process that your DNA would go through. The hydrogen bonds would activate. The neutrons that are in the center of all of the atoms would begin to open their little windows and let the mana through. This would create a chemical called celestylene in the DNA. Celestylene is a transient element that it doesn't last very long when it comes here, but it releases, it sets a chemical reaction into the body that allows for natural internal fission and fusion of the protons and electrons. The electrons actually turn into protons and pull into the nucleus. Now, if you do that under normal circumstances that we call normal down here that aren't normal, you blow up. You just simply spontaneously combust because there aren't the natural frequency links of the ki and the chi and all the other things that go with the mana that are supposed to be there. But if you have the mana currents activated properly, you will have, when you go into transmutation, the celestylene will trigger. The windows and the neutrons will trigger opening. This will trigger the hydrogen bonds to produce celestylene in the middle of them. The celestylene will cause chain reactions, chemical reactions in the DNA that will create hormonal reactions all through the body. And through this process, you will literally have your electrons turn into protons. Everybody pulls into the nucleus to go home, and they go out through the neutron windows, literally, turn into mana, and then remanifest. This is why getting some control over our thought patterns is going to be really, really useful, because the mana responds to our thought. How do you know where you're going to go? You're going to go where your consciousness is thinking. So if you're afraid when you go that you're going to blow up, you might make yourself blow up. This is why learning to be very selective in what you choose to put your attention on. When you begin to work with the mana frequencies, we will have time. They're going to train us, I think, through some of the other levels of the course of how to focus the right way. What ways would be the right way to focus if you're going to have this power back, and what ways would not be the right way, and we'll save you some trouble by telling you what lessons you really don't want to teach yourself, right, by using them wrong, by focusing in the wrong ways. So we're going to learn how to fix this stuff. And what's so nice is the technologies, what we need to do to get the stuff fixed is so easy compared to what it takes to figure out what went wrong in the first place, where it came from, and to make diagrams to show people about it. It's much, much easier to simply use the codes. What we're going to do this evening, how are we doing on time? Because I want to make sure we have time for the exercises. 10 minutes to 9. It's 10 to 9. We have an hour. An hour and a bit. Okay, good. Okay. All right, I think, yeah, this is enough. So you will have this, and this one I think will help you a lot. Like when you have this to refer back to, you'll have questions, especially if you're going to try to teach this stuff. There's so many of these little currents that are wrapped around in there. It will be very difficult for you to, it is for me anyway, maybe somebody else it would be easier for, but to remember who's on first. You know, now we had protons, electrons, you know, who is in between what? You know, this is the diagram that shows you who's in between what, and I'll go through these. Okay, we have, let's see, I will start here with the number 1 here. These numbers correspond to the ray numbers. Okay, so number 1 would be this band here. That would be the chi. Okay, the D1 protons, right? Now 2, let's find 2. 2 is over here. Okay, this would be the ki. The D2 electrons would be this band here. Okay, let's find the 3. The 3 is up here. That would be the ray, the D3 neutrons. Okay, now 4 is over here. That's the prana. This is where the prana comes in, and it comes in as the form of myons. All right. 5 is here. Actually, the prana. Did I say mana or prana? Yeah, okay, I did say prana. That's what I meant to say. Good. All right, then D5 mana is here. And it comes in the form of dions. So here, you have a dion ring, okay? Now, dions are density 2 units, okay? They're electrons up there. They create different kinds of fields here. They create negative electrical fields here. So the things that you don't see, here you see, our scientists can see electrons, protons, and neutrons down here. But the stuff that you can't see, that's actually there, but it's in one of the higher densities, will create either electrical, magnetic, neutral, or electrical and magnetic fields, depending on, and they also vary at times. What was once a positive electrical field will become a negative. They move around, they change places, because there's interactions that take place between the myons and the dions and things. But this is the basic structure. These are the things you'll see manifest, these bigger dots here. That's what our scientist is looking at. But if you want to know in between what flows what, this is the chart. So you have 4 here, the prana, you have 5 here, the mana. You have 6 is here, going closer up to the nucleus again. Okay, this is the Treya, D6-Ashayana field. The D7 is right here, so in between here, and this is the Iran field. D8 is here. The Maya is the Ektron field. D9, here's where we get into the void space. Okay, this takes us into the D9 is the Yana, which is one of the Mano currents. It's the Rayon current, and the Ma'a is the D12 Rion current. So this is going from the nucleus of your cells outward to the space between your cells. All right, so when we're working with the Mana codes, we're going to be creating frequency. We're going to be bringing in new life force energy, or actually we're going to be bringing a life force energy that does live there. Right now it's there, but it can't flow through here. We're going to be bringing it through to its natural connection points, to the natural neutron window in here, and that's going to start the circulation system back. So we're going to teach our cells how to breathe again. We're going to teach them how to breathe in and breathe out, the inhale and the exhale of source, which is breathing in and out, the primal currents of frequency, the primal consciousness. This is going to create, now if we did it all at once, we'd just blow ourselves up, because it'd be too much frequency, too fast. The cellular structure has to have time to adjust to these frequencies coming in. And that's why our higher identities, literally our avatar level of self, will regulate this for us. It's part of our consciousness that's up there, you know, expanded into the field. It's a D12 level of consciousness. It's not going to allow too much of these forces to come in at once, so you don't damage yourself, because the idea is to fix yourself, not to damage yourself. Right? But we're going to be having changes happening in our atomic structure. These changes will also be held within the elemental things in our bodies, not just the units or the singular atoms, but atoms grouped to form molecules. Molecules are all different kinds of molecules in our bodies. We have water molecules, and we have, you know, amino acids. All sorts of things are making our bodies what they are. Now, water molecules have they're a particular state. They're in a liquid form. They hold memory because they interact directly. Water molecules interact directly with the Mejan field, which is the pre-sound field, the Mejan units and anything created from them, which means water works with the Ire frequencies. Right now, our water molecules are holding reversals in our body. The waters are literally killing us. The body fluids are literally killing us. This is why we get cancers and things, because after a while, the reversals build up to the point where they begin to go into the cells around them, and they literally, the water molecules start to try to steal the life force away from the cells themselves, because they're mutated and they can feel their lack of energy. So they will try to draw energy in when they should be actually circulating energy. They actually start to hold energy and pull it in and try to take it away from the body. So we'll begin to heal the elements in our body as well. The waters in our body will begin to become more healthy for our bodies. We'll begin to slowly bring back the natural integrity of what fluids in our body are supposed to be like. It will affect the fluids. It will affect the hormones, the chemicals, the DNA. It's not going to all happen at once, or we probably get like, I can just see, boom, we all turn into what we're supposed to be, and we all get like corralled by the government because there's this new species of alien on the planet. We don't know where they came from. Right? If it all happened too fast, that's what it would look like. Because when we start to heal, after a while, when those chromosomes start to get enough critical mass where they can turn back on and stay on, where the DNA strands can activate naturally and stay on. Because right now what we do is temporary, nanosecond bursts of activation. That's all anybody can really hold on the planet right now, the higher strand activations, but that's plenty. That's enough to bring, you know, nice bursts of these higher frequencies through. But at some point, when these things all click on and we hit critical mass and our bodies are cleared and healed and we can hold them, we're going to be a lot taller. We're going to start to grow from these things. You may find it first being your head. One of the first places that changes take place. One of the first places. No. If you have weird sensations, like there's several sensations. One is sounding like your skull is cracking. All of a sudden, you're not doing anything. All of a sudden, you might hear, and you know it came from inside your head, and you know it was your skull bone. And you kind of. Huh? Oh, it's still there. Okay. There's weird things that start to happen. They're not all at once, and they're not like heavily dramatic, but they can scare you, or you might go running to the hospital to try to find out if there's anything wrong with you. And if you think there is, it's best to get it checked out to make sure in the first place. We never tell anybody don't go for medical treatment or anything, but we say be aware that some of the things you may be going through, they're not going to know what to do with either. One of the first things that I had was I had a little chip here from when I was a child, a little chip over the eye because I got hit with a rock playing rock baseball. And, where you hit hit rocks with sticks, right, to play baseball. And I got hit there as a little tiny chip. When I started to do DNA activations, this was even before we started playing with VECA codes, there was a time when I heard an internal crunch. It was just like imagine an earthquake. You could just hear the happening. No pain, but it split from here all the way up to here. It split up to the top of my head. And you can see the ridge sometimes. Certain photos you can see it, and it looks like a vein, but it isn't. It's a ridge. It's like a hole. Now, most people won't get that dramatic of a thing, but my head made room for my brain is basically what happened, because you start to get more fields being generated in the brain when you have DNA activations, when your cells are changing, and your bones and things will try to accommodate them. They will start to move things around. You may have teeth deciding that they're not going to stick around. Teeth breaking is one of the classic signs of DNA activation, which means that you're also beginning the processes of bringing these life force currents back into the body. I hope so, because pretty soon I'm going to be a souparian if not. I'm serious. I went through a period of 2 years where I had healthy teeth all of my life. I went through a period of 2 years, the last 2 actually, where all of these literally crumbled within like 6 months. I lost almost all of these here, and I have a couple left on the bottom, but all the top ones are gone, and I lost these too. And I'm thinking, well, I could go get them fixed, but can you take that stuff that they make those false ones out of through gates? So it's like I haven't gone for the cosmetic thing yet, because it might not be worth it, because I don't know if you can take it through anyway. I'm going to inner earth, excuse me, and I'm not going to put anything on me or in me that might get left at the door. Because why bother? Why waste your money? If it were front ones, I'd probably say, well, for the meantime, I will do something about that. Now, I really hope that part of what we do have happen is once we get to a certain level, we may just go through a new, teething cycle, which I wouldn't doubt. Instead of chewing on our little rings like the babies do because it hurts when they're coming through. I don't know what the teeth do. I don't know how far and how fast we're going to be making the shift back to our natural pattern. If we went all the way back really fast, we'd become breatharians again, which means we'd not only be losing teeth, we'd be losing a whole lot of other stuff that lives inside our bodies right now, like stomachs and intestines and all sorts of things. Where they're going to go, they're just going to demanifest, I don't know. So what we're moving toward, as far as what are we going to look like through this process, what is it going to do to our biology? I know it's going to go slower. It's not going to bang zoom, you wake up in the morning, you don't even know who you are. You look at yourself and say, oh my God, I'm 12 feet tall. I have 6 fingers. I have 6 toes on each foot. I have no teeth because I don't eat. And I have no stomach inside of me. That would be a little scary. I think it'd be a riot. You'd feel like you woke up in somebody else's body. Who is this? It's you. No, it isn't. I wonder if what our hair will do. Will it start growing back? Will it totally fall out? There's these questions are worth asking, because as we move into these things, we are going to begin physical changes, but they're not all going to be dramatic and all at once to the point where we find ourselves looking like aliens to ourselves when we look in the mirror. But we will have some strange things. Another thing that can be scary is what's called, I call it the landmine syndrome. It sounds like landmines going off in your brain when new neural networks are beginning to open in response to the chemical activations, in response to the DNA activations, where it literally sounds like, and you could spot exactly, you could feel it. It didn't really hurt. It just went in your brain. You can feel it. It's like little landmines going off. These are some of the other things you may begin to feel. You may get bone pain. The bones very much respond. They're kind of going, oh, no, not higher frequency, ow, because the bones are made of substances that are solids here that are based on 5 platonic solids when they should be based on 12. This is why things are breaking. This is why teeth are breaking, because they're made out of elements that don't have their full components to them. So when the natural frequencies come through, they can't hold it, so they demanifest themselves. Our teeth are demanifesting themselves. There are parts of our bodies that hopefully will beat them to the punch, like we'll get them healed before they demanifest themselves. These are some of the things that as we move into this, now these are going to happen to us with or without man-out codes, with or without using the technologies. The advantage of using the technologies is we are consciously participating with this process. We're resetting the natural mathematical programs. Like if I knew how to reset the man-out programs in my teeth 2 years ago, I might still have more left, you know, they would have stuck around because I could have progressively helped them to reset the structure, and at least parts, at least my own body I could have worked with to get it to the point where things didn't fall out and demanifest themselves because they couldn't hold the frequency anymore. So we are actually preparing ourselves to be able to hold more frequency. We're now getting into preparing our elemental kingdom, the elements that live inside of us. Not just our minds. We've worked on preparing our minds for it. We've worked on our spirits for a very, very long time, and if with certain types of teachings that are out there, you can work on your spirits from now until eternity, and they'll never teach you how to get them into your body because they don't want you to get them into your body. We're going to heal the shadow part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that's in reversal. Where does your shadow live? Right here. In every atom that you have here. The shadow lives. It should be like a horror movie, right? The shadow lives. If we think of our auric fields, you know those bubbles of energy around us, right? And we think about our radial body, the little cap that's around, the capsule that's around those bodies, and the little ones that go down to our cells. We can visualize the shadow as if we have one self here, our natural self, how we're supposed to be. You have your eggs, your capsules, your hula body you're supposed to walk around in, and it has a Merkaba axis that, say, is vertical, like it's supposed to be. Okay? Then you have another part. It's as if that egg of your hula bodies spawned its antithesis, and it has a part of itself that's smaller right now, but the shadow can actually get bigger and swallow the other. But it's a part that literally pulled off, as if you have one egg here, but now you have this other egg that's attached to your body, but it's running at a different angle, has a different rotation, its mathematics are running differently, and it's sucking energy off your natural energy bubble. It has a different Merkaba axis. It has an axis that's tilted to try to pull you into phantom, because that's the alignment that it has. Right now, Earth's Merkaba, this is where it gets tricky, Earth's Merkaba is tilted. This is why we have the weird little, ever since the Atlantean pole shift, 9058 BC, there was a little shift, a small shift then. There were two larger shifts before that were done by the fallen angelics to purposely pull the planet in to phantom, into the phantom matrix black hole system by aligning its frequencies and its Merkaba axis with the one that goes with phantom matrix. Right now, we are, if we did a 45-degree shift in angular rotation of particle spin, normally, under normal conditions, that would take us to inner Earth. It would take us to inner Earth or to Terra if we wanted to go up vertically through the halls of Amente. But right now, because Earth is not in its natural alignment, it's actually back 22.5 degrees. If you did 45 degrees, it's going to take you into alignment with, not with inner Earth, with phantom. So there are teachings that are being taught. We're being taught to do a 45-degree shift without being taught how to shift back first to the natural alignment. When we do salutations, the salutation exercise, it's been out now for a while. Some of you may not know it, but we will go through it either tomorrow morning. We're going to do salutation on the beach after the ordinations. The salutation exercise is very important because what it does is it activates your tribal shield and it activates your Maharic shield, and it brings these frequencies temporarily into the body. And then it generates enough of these frequencies, the natural frequencies in the body. Then you use your body's momentum to begin to set your Merkaba into its right spin rate. Once you get it into its right spin rate, its axis will align naturally. And from there, you can make a 45-degree shift to get to inner Earth. So we're going to learn a lot of tricks of the trade as we move forth toward an outcome. That outcome will be different for each of us. Some of us will be, there's a song that, I don't remember that song, Meet on the Edge, or the Ledge? Meet on the Ledge. It was, who does that song? Fairport Convention. Okay, there's this like band that I'd never heard of before that had a tape of Fairport Convention. And this had this very moving chorus. It said, meet on the ledge we're gonna meet on the ledge. And it was all about, get what? Yeah. When the time is come, I'm gonna meet all my friends. We may have one of these scenarios where we will meet on the ledge of the stargates, the ledge of the inner earth gates when they're ready to open. Some of us will go, some of us won't go, but there will be some who do. Even if only one got through, that would be an accomplishment compared to coming from the level of amnesia that people are coming from here, being able to make the fixes in their bodies and consciousness that need to be made to be able to do it. But this is the big gold ring. How they used to have the, grab the gold ring when you're on the carousel going by. That was like, the prize. Well, the big prize in this game is actually getting yourself together enough where you can walk your body through a gate and getting your consciousness and your attitude and all sorts of other things that go with your body in line enough where you'd be invited to go into a place where the Christos civilization is being lived. Because right now, we have to not only get our bodies to where they can go through biologically, but we have to evolve our minds and our attitudes to where we would not be a threat if we were invited in to a Christos society, a society built on love, not on shadows, built on love, not on egos. So there are other things that we're going to learn. Tomorrow, I think we'll do it tomorrow. Well, maybe I'll do it tonight. I think I'll go into this tonight. I'll do this tonight. There is part of these courses, part of the Dance 4 programs, are going to get into, where's that one? The 12 elements, 12 attitudes of mastery. Okay. We are going to be working with the body. We're going to be working with the emotions. The emotions are connected to the shadow. The shadow's been running our emotions around for a very long time. But we're also going to be working with the mental body, the D3 mental body, and trying to help ourselves recognize attitudes. There are 12 attitudes of mastery. These are just the beginnings. But if we can start to think about what they mean, we need to fix not just our bodies. We need to fix our emotions, heal them, not just fix them, but we need to heal our emotions, heal our bodies, and we need to heal our minds. So if we get an invitation, because you will not get into inner earth without an invitation, and that's not because the inner earth races are being mean. It's because for their very own survival, the survival of their Christos civilization, they have had to, for many thousands of years, keep the gates closed. Because humans and other things that live here on Earth became so out of control that they would have decimated inner Earth civilization by now. And that wasn't going to be allowed to happen. Because inner Earth civilizations have held for us all this time the Christos model. So once we got through with our growing pains and possibly wouldn't destroy those civilizations, we could be invited back home and back in so we could reclaim. But we'd have a lot of knowledge to bring back with us too. Knowledge of the fall. While they held the knowledge of the not fall, we held the knowledge of the fall. And together, that's a lot of knowledge about learning how to help other races. There will be a program of invitation. We're going to be introducing that progressively in, yes, please. We're going to be introducing the program they told me that in Bermuda is the first introduction of what's called the contact course, where the IANI are willing to work with people. If the people are willing to work with them, you will need to use Dance for Life program, like to work with these codes that we're going to get, the sound tones that we're going to be getting today, and the symbols that we're going to be given tomorrow. And tomorrow, I think the most valuable thing that's going to come out of tomorrow, we're going to have some fun because we're going to get up and do this stuff. You're not just going to have to listen to me talk at you all day. I really hate when I have to do that, but there was enough that I needed to get you through before we could get into the act of doing stuff where you knew what we were doing. But the most important thing I think you'll get out of tomorrow is the 12 actions of mastery, which is the basic 12-step program of what do I do with myself on a basic daily, weekly, monthly basis to keep with this program, to keep these activations to help myself. All right, so we're going to have that. It will show you how to use the basic techniques that you're learning here, how to put them in order. And it will also, it goes with these. These are the 12 attitudes of mastery. As we go through all of the courses, the first book of the Mahabharata, the 4 volumes of the Dance 4 programs, they each are going to have 12 different elements. We had 3 sets of 12 elements here, and we're going to get 5, there's 5 remaining on the 12 lessons of mastery. The 12 lessons of mastery were the first 12 things from Dance of Life. That's where we started. This is what you would be teaching someone if they came to you to find out about this stuff, what I talked about before, going from the forces into the structure, into understanding your basic parts, that kind of thing. The 12 lessons. There are 7 of them that we covered. We're going to get the rest of them. The other 5 are going to be given tomorrow. Now, this is the attitude part, where we start to work with our attitude. And each time, we're going to deal with something that affects the physical, something that affects the emotional, and something that affects the mental. When we're working on level 2, let's say, when we do dance for love, we're going to be working with the physical, emotional, and mental levels of the soul body, your density 2 body. So you always have the physical, emotional, and mental levels to bring into harmony with each other and to raise them to the next level. These are the beginnings of just some things to think about when it comes to attitudes. Attitudes, what we choose to look at the world, the filters we choose to look at the world through. Most of them right now are subconscious. We don't even know what filters we're looking at the world through. Most of us are looking at the world through our shadow, and we don't even know that that's happening. We just feel it. That's where we get the fear feelings and the worry feelings and the anger feelings, where, you know, and you also get like those bursts of things, like you may get days where you're just absolutely manic and you're, you know, just wired, frequencies are working good that day. Then you'll get the absolute opposite and you go into depression. All of these things are the play between the energies of the light and the shadow within yourself. The shadow does not use any of these attitudes as filters. It uses fear and lack and feeling it has to take in order to survive, because it is afraid of not surviving at the core of its being. Now, this fear that the shadow carries, that makes it literally become an energy vampire to whatever comes near it, including you, you know, including anybody in your life. If your shadow attaches, that's when you get into those little power play games where you're actually trying to suck energy off people. And they might feel it, and you might not realize you're doing it. But your field is doing it because your shadow's pulling. Now, these attitudes are things that the mental body can do, to adopt, to choose, to look at and to think about and try to feel around what that might feel like to really look at life that way. These are filters that you can consciously choose instead of the ones that are culturally programmed in and the ones that are working subconsciously. It'll take a while for you to really integrate what they mean, but there's feelings that go with them, feelings that will heal pieces of the shadow body. And it will also get the mind to a space where it understands that certain reaction patterns, we have a choice in any situation. We can act or we can react. When we react, somebody else or something else is controlling our power. We are just giving a knee-jerk reaction back to whatever somebody else decided to create or something else decided to create. If we can learn to choose action and begin to choose our filters, realize that we have that choice in the first place, we can choose 12 attitudes of mastery. This is where it begins. The first choice is to choose love. Now, love is a really highly abused word on this planet. Love is usually the word that's applied to, can I steal your energy? I don't have enough of my own. And it may be innocently done. I'm lonely, I need you. Love usually means need here. And need very often means feed. If you look at it that way, it's pretty blunt, but it's really how love is being used. Love is need and need is feed. Feed is sucking energy off somebody else because you don't know how to bring it through your own self. We're taught that this is what love is on this planet. This is what love is on Nibiru. This is what love is on other places like Nibiru, because they do not have the ability to directly bring in the Christos frequency. They are limited, and they know they are limited because they are making choices that they don't want to cooperate, they want to dominate. And because of that, they're making choices that they're going to be masters of the universe, they're going to take over, so no, they're not going to let themselves be connected to the eternal light rays, they're just going to steal it. It's a sickness of consciousness. If the Anunnaki people or any of the other people adopted these basic attitudes of mastery, none of us would be in this mess, right? Love is the first one. Love is the recognition of the truth of the all-oneness. That is the truth. Love is to recognize that the only truth that is we are all faces of the one. Everything is a face of the one. To make any other choice in a situation other than to act in a loving way that recognizes the oneness in the other person or the other being or the other thing is completely self-destructive. Any harm you would intend to bring upon another, you are harming yourself, because there is only one self. If you can recognize the love, you begin to be able to choose action over reaction. Reaction is what happens when the victim-victimizer pattern runs rampant, where nobody even remembers who was the first victim or who was the first victimizer. You just get caught in these, I'll hurt you or I'll stop you from hurting me, and to do that, I'm going to have to hurt you. And we get into these little games where if we chose love in any moment, and that doesn't mean let somebody walk on you, not at all. You can choose to recognize when somebody else is so out of control that you can love them to bits right now, but they're not in the space where they can feel love for you right now, and that's okay. Let that be okay. If it's in your face, you need to love you. If you want them to love you and they're not acting loving, that's okay. You need to tell yourself, you need to let yourself say, well, I respect them and I love them, even though they're not behaving how I wish they were, even though they're not acting toward me the way I wish they would. And they're telling me that they will act the way I want, the way I would like to see them act, if I do this, 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 and this. But I don't want to do this, this, and this, and this. They're trying to barter with me. They're trying to take my power. If you see this dynamic happening in your relationships, you can choose love. And you can choose love either close up or at a distance. Some people are easier to love at a distance. You don't have to hate them to leave them. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't care. It does mean I love and care about me too, and I'm not going to let you victimize me, because that's not healthy for either of us. So choosing love, there are many. We purposely didn't analyze the heck out of what these are supposed to mean. Just gave you a little tidbit to move with, and you'll have a copy of this in the chart pack tomorrow too. But these things will begin to help you feel around what these qualities, these are qualities you can choose to have, and tell your mental body that, okay, we might have used other filters to look at reality through before. These look like they work better. I think I would probably get better feelings out of these. If you look at your ideas, your mental body is setting the pattern for what your emotions are going to do. The higher frequencies actually set the pattern for the lower frequencies in the natural flow of frequency. So mental body, D3, it's supposed to set the frequencies for emotional body, D2. So what you think, you will feel, and your body will act on. Right now, we have an inversion in the amount of energy that's in our emotional bodies compared to what's in our mental bodies because of the inversions in our cells. We actually have an emotional body that has more frequency because it has part of the shadow imprint that's connected to the reversals in Phantom Matrix. There are people that are connected to our shadows that aren't us. One of the greatest places to see this is in bar rooms. If you go to clubs and you turn on your astral vision, your inner vision, you start looking around, you might want your hair might stand on end. I mean, the first few times you see what's going on in bar situations where people are drinking alcohol, which is feeding the shadow. Alcohol is not bad in all situations, but when you go over the moderation point, it begins to really bring up the shadow, which really, really allows other things floating around in the higher frequency fields that want to feed off you to connect directly to your body. So there's these reversals that are held in our bodies. They have their own attitudes, but they're not just us. This is what most people don't realize, that we have our shadow, but it's not just made of us. Our shadow is a part of us that was created by the grid mutations, and that part allows other things, a black hole window right into our bodies. And very often, the shadow isn't what's doing some of the negative stuff you might assume your shadow is doing. Some people are terrified of their shadow because they know when their shadow comes up, they kill people or something. People that are really out of control, there's a lot of people who commit violent crimes or do really horrid things, and they really are in conflict within themselves. But what's not recognized is sometimes it's not just their own inner conflict. Sometimes it's not just their own shadow, but their shadow is used as a doorway for something else to come through and express itself. That happens very, very often with violent crimes, particularly in people that don't usually tend to be violent. So there's a lot more to the shadow. The shadow needs our help. The shadow is just a part of us that has this reversal that leaves the door open for anything that wants to come in and try to take our energy or try to get into our bodies and harm us. So as we work with the codes that we're going to be working with and the tones, we are going to progressively bring the shadow back around so that doorway to, let's say, the doorway to the pits begins to close. But we can help the process by the attitudes we choose every day. The attitudes are, you can wake up in the morning and say, well, no matter what it looks like out there, no matter what I have to do today, I'm going to choose, let's say, I'll choose just 3 of them today, but to keep them in my mind that today, in all circumstances, I'm going to choose these 3 attitudes. Build them up in 3s, because it's too hard to remember all 12 unless you want to walk around with your page. Remember, that's not, start with 1 if you have to. But start with, and you don't have to pick them in order either. You can feel out which ones you feel most drawn to, because that will tell you something about what the lessons you're trying to remember right now in yourself. Okay, when you get to grace, grace is a nice word. Grace is a nice space. Grace is a nice space to be. Grace is allowing the all-oneness to be what it is, regardless of whether it suits you. It's, yeah, that's a very charged statement. It's living perpetual forgiveness. In fact, you don't even need forgiveness. Forgiveness implies you passed a judgment that somebody is doing something wrong. So then you forgive them for it. That's a form of patronization, really. Okay? When you're forgiving, you're actually patronizing because you're already judged. All right? If you are in grace, in a state of grace, you can be aware that there are things you would not choose for yourself. And that you can look at them and say, this is not something that in my world that I particularly like, but I am going to allow that to be. And I am not going to let myself fall into the trap of making me right and you wrong, which is another version of victim-victimizer game. If you want to stay outside of the victim-victimizer game and learn how to begin to stand outside of it, no matter how bad whatever it is, and it may be awful, it may be terrible, you pass judgment on it, you have engaged the game. If you simply allow, say, I choose to enter a state of grace, which means you let the good, the bad, and the awful, and the wonderful all coexist side by side and move with and through each other, within you, around you, and you choose peace and grace and allow that, where you're not going to fight with that. You're not going to give it your energy. You're just going to allow it to be. You're respecting the other pieces of God that are here, regardless of how out of control they might seem, because some people are out of control. This is God experiencing out of controlness. All right? Now, you might not think that's a great idea, and it might not have been the original intention that that being had been created on. It doesn't mean you let them, run over your house and, like, steal your car and kill your family and those kind of things. I'm not talking about that, but a general place of grace, which means whenever possible, when you're not forced to, for survival reasons, for, like, literally having to be very practical, where I have to assess this situation, and excuse me, I, have to make a judgment call. Because there will be times when you need to make a judgment call in life, as far as effective decision-making goes. It's not saying don't assess things. It's saying learn the fine line, it's like a hair, between assessing and judging. Assessing is trying to see the whole situation from an us perspective. What is needed, not just for me, but what is needed for the whole here? What is the Christos need here? And let me be a vessel for the Christos, which means it should serve you and you and the whole group as well as the self. When you go into judgment, there's a whole different story. You're not assessing to try to make a decision out of love that will benefit everyone. You're trying to boost your own ego by telling yourself, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm better than you are. All right? Critiquing is another way that this comes out. And there's some people that are masters of this. My mom was a master of this one. She's a Virgo, too. Scary. That's probably why I became a very soft Virgo, where I let everybody be just the way they wanted to be. And I thought that was fine and wonderful, and I loved them just the way they were, because she was the total polar opposite of that. I became the polar opposite of what she was in her Virgo imprint. Because she would look at people, and it would make her feel good to know she was smarter. This person's screwing up. I'm going to let that be known, because it made her feel good. There is a need, and it was vicious. There was a vicious need in this poor lady, and she's mellowed with age, fortunately. But she used to really feel personal joy at being able to look at a situation, go into a workplace especially. A lot of this is coming out through in her generation, the male-female in the workplace dramas, where females weren't treated equally, so you had to do triple, what a man would do to prove that you were intelligent, so you might get a decent, shake at work. But there was a judgment factor that would come through, where this wasn't an assessment, okay, what's best for this whole situation for everyone. There's a glee that was involved with saying, I know I'm right, and I'm going to make sure everybody else finds out that you're wrong. And she would really go into a pattern, and it's a part of her that's hurting, and I know that. It's a part of her that needs healing. She would go into a pattern. Forget love. Yeah, I love you, but, right? And on the but, you would get a string of everything, why you're not worthy of that love, what you're doing wrong, how you should be better, how you woulda, coulda, shoulda been, and why you should be because she thinks so. And when you approach people and you approach the world with this, most people, if the world could walk away, it will. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take their power. You're trying to take somebody else's life and say, I'm your dictator. I'm going to be your taskmaster. You're supposed to live up to my standards. You don't need that game, because when you get into that game, you'll find somebody else to play the role and mirror it back to you. You go back and forth, back and forth. So when we're in the state of grace, we allow the all-oneness to be whatever it is. We don't always have to agree with it, but let it be anyway. Don't pass judgment on it. If it's in your face and you have to make an assessment from a we space. We, the eternal one. Meaning we, everybody on the planet, every being that ever lived, you and me and whoever this person is that I have to make an assessment about how I'm going to interact with. Make it from the Christos we space. We are one. And try to serve that ideal instead of going into critiquing, instead of going into figuring out what's wrong with that person. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. It's like, why don't you point your finger at your own self and I'll worry about my own self. It will be very helpful to get out of the judgment issues. Whenever possible, choose to love instead of judge. Use assessment only when necessary. All right? When it comes to looking at things where you have to pass judgment calls. We pass judgment calls all the time on stuff we don't have to. Do you ever sit with like a friend and watch TV? You're watching these fake dramas, right, with actors playing parts. Oh, he should have said this. That person should have done this. Your judgment's coming out all over the place. And it's funny. Oh, no, I think they should have done that. And you just like get in like the soap opera people that really get into watching the soap operas. They're living this drama. They're living that energy through actors that are embodying the dramas for them. But they're still engaged. All their energy is going down this tube that's called the television back into the victim-victimizer drama. So this is a choice. Choose love. Choose grace. You can forgive. Now, there's a fine line between forgive and grace. Ultimately, forgiveness means you're already judged, all right? Which means that you were out of grace to begin with. Because if you're in grace, you don't need to judge. You simply be and allow others to be as well. Down here, because it's like a battle zone half the time, we very often find ourselves stepping a bit out of grace in order to go at least into assessment so we can figure out what to do with ourselves so we don't get shot with the cosmic bullets that are always flying around here in the ethers. And I'm talking more about the emotional, mental, wacky energy stuff that gets going around, not physical bullets. But forgiveness is a step toward grace. If somebody's done something horrible to you, if you've lived through a horrible thing and there's a part of you that just feels so victimized, you feel devastated, you have to honor the fact that you have that part of you. It isn't going to go away. Your shadow's hurt in there somewhere. It's hurting. Recognize you have a shadow that you need to heal. Recognize, too, that in forgiveness, the first step toward grace, in forgiveness, you're saying, okay, I acknowledge a part of me is still judging you, and I should judge you because you did this horrible thing to me, and I feel terrible, which means you're honoring your feelings, but I choose to forgive you. And you may need to leave at that point, depending on the situation. I'm thinking of extreme situations, like, say, if you had a child and your child was murdered and you're looking at the child murderer in the courtroom. If anything is going to lower you out of grace, where you're just going to want to go up there and balance the scores, that is usually something like that, brings that out in the most benign and sweet of people. They can find a bloodthirst for revenge coming up out of them, under the disguise of mourning. They're hurting so badly, but they actually feel that they would like to punish. They want to have, you are bad, you are wrong, and I want to make you pay for what you did. This is not where forgiveness comes from. You're going to keep in the drama, and what's scary is you'll bring more of it to you with a different face on it if you hold that energy in your own body. So if we choose grace, and if we can't choose grace yet in a situation, choose forgiveness first as a step toward grace. We are releasing ourselves from that situation and from the person. You're breaking the cords that bind, because whenever you have a hatred or a deep, you did this to me and I'll never be satisfied, I just can't let go of it. If you can't let go of it, that's exactly what you're doing. You're not letting go of it. You are keeping yourself bound to that person. And even if that person decides to go away, you will create in your hologram another person to fill their shoes. They might even look like them, which is really wild. This is why, when killers get wacky and they, kill several, I was thinking of, Ted Bundy people, those kind of people. They tend to go after the same type. It has nothing to do with the individuals that are in those bodies directly in the conscious mind. What they're doing is killing a symbol. They're going after a symbol. And we will all do this if we get trapped in the victim-victimizer drama. One of the easiest ways to begin to step back out of that drama is to recognize it is a drama that runs like a CD player that's being really run through the planetary grids, through the eye of the jackal implant that's affecting us at the 1.75 in our bodies that we are going to heal. Recognize that, decide to disengage, choose love, choose grace. And the third one, I would suggest starting with this one. Yeah. Gratitude. Appreciating the all-oneness, knowing your aliveness. Gratitude. How many times, how often are we taught to wake up in the morning and go, if only. Oh, it's sunny today, but it's so hot. It's like, you see what you don't have. We are trained to see what we don't have instead of what we do have. You can have a person that finds a penny on the sidewalk. A person, if that person's dressed in a business suit and is getting in his Ferrari, won't even bother bending down to pick it up. But if that person just got off a boat and has no shoes and just got off a boat from a foreign country, first time ever in this place where the streets are supposed to be paved with gold, or at least pennies, that penny has a huge significance. Gratitude bursts forth from their heart. They appreciate that penny, where everybody else just throws it away. They don't even care because it's not even worth anything anymore, supposedly. If we begin to choose gratitude consciously, we will bring more things into our life to be grateful for. If we choose to look at things always, well, I could be having a good day today, but if only I didn't, well, as soon as I get this done, or as soon as I can get that house, or get that car, or get that spouse, or that mate, or that partner, or that trip to wherever, as soon as I can do that, then I'll be happy, then I'll be at peace. You're putting your peace forever elsewhere. You're putting your, I'm at oneness now, elsewhere. You need to simply choose, look at what I have. Could be worse is a good way to start that. Okay? Like, if you can't immediately be really grateful for, you look around and you look at, say, your old furniture, and you look at the fact that you have a pile of bills on the table and you have no idea how you're going to pay those this month, those kind of things. If you can't figure out how to really feel that feeling of joy and gratitude for having all this in your hologram, you can at least think about, it could be worse. What if I was in Afghanistan right now? What if I had been living under the Taliban, let's say, and I was a woman, and I had 6 children, but I wasn't allowed to go to work so I could feed them. And the Taliban killed my husband, so I was left in a shack with 6 children, and I watched them starve to death. Then look back at your pile of bills and your old furniture, and start to feel the shift. Because, that old dresser doesn't look quite so bad when you think about where your clothes might have been if you were living in a tent in Afghanistan. And also think about what might have been living in your clothes if you were living in a tent in Afghanistan. Every time you turn on the water, it should bring you great joy. Just, yeah, could be worse. There are people out there that are living in a very much larger lack space than we are here in the, in America and in Europe too. There's a lot of goodness that we have that we take for granted. The more we take it for granted, the more we are moving ourselves backward to becoming like the people who don't have it. And I don't like to say that the people who are experiencing pain right now and having lack, they have beliefs that they believe in that lack, first of all, and they live in countries that the government makes sure they believe in that lack. But they didn't get there by accident. These are karmic groups of people that incarnate into countries to learn certain lessons and to learn to get out of those lessons, to learn to move past those beliefs in lack. Now, they're being exploited there. A lot of times you'll find the people that are the ones being exploited in this lifetime, take them back to Atlantis, they were the ones. They're actually exploiting the ones who are exploiting them now because they're trapped in the victim-victimizer cycle. We can begin to free ourselves from all those cycles when we begin to realize that these are the first 12 attitudes, things you can do with your mental body. Attitudes of mastery, love, grace, gratitude, reverent respect. Here's another one. There's a lie that's been spread around this country and I think around this world for a very long time. Well, I respect him. He didn't earn it. Excuse me. Is it living? Is it breathing? It earned it. Get this. Get this. You don't have to appreciate what somebody's doing. You don't have to like what somebody's doing. You might even be really ticked off at them because you just don't like the way they do things anymore, and they're not up to your standards. Judgment. You're not in grace. Okay? However, we have been programmed that respect is something we have to earn. We're programmed from the time we're kids very often that we have to earn our respect. We have to earn our freedom. We have to earn our love. Guess what planet that came from? Yes! The big Nibiru in the sky. Respect, reverent respect, is acknowledging and giving to the all-oneness. When you acknowledge the all-oneness, you know there is no other choice that is a sane choice but respect. Every being. If you want respect, if you think you're something great, why would you think that anything else is less than that too? If you're recognizing the all-oneness. You're exploring something together. All right? You might be exploring a positive polarity, they might be exploring a negative polarity, but you are still, if you are going to be in divine right alignment within yourself, and you are going to recognize your part in the all-oneness, God gives us the ability to create unconditionally. We are given unconditional love, unconditional power, really, and unconditional respect. That means our ideas are just as important to God as God's own. That means we are not treated as lesser than or looked upon as lesser than just because there might be a difference of opinion. The lesson of reverent respect is very important. That means you can look at a cockroach, and instead of just smacking, killing it, you can say, okay, well, I don't think I'm ready to live in peaceful harmony with you right now unless you really want to stay like under the cupboard over there and don't come out when guests are here. And they usually won't listen, right? They usually don't want to hear it anyway. So you will think, though, before you start, when you interact with things, coming from a place of reverent respect, you begin to recognize the classic namaste. You recognize the God within all things. No matter what the illusion is of what that thing is, it is still made of the units of the consciousness of God. It is still made of the mana, the ire, and the mane. It is still nothing more or less than what you are. Respect is the only sane choice. When you go into saying, well, I'll treat you nice once, I can respect you. I used to respect you, but you let me down, and you're not living up to my standards anymore, so I don't respect you anymore, so you're not worthy of my attention. Who's playing the game here? Is it the person who's saying, I'm not going to respect you, or is it the person on the other end of it that's saying, I wish you respected me, they're treating me like a victim. Here we go again, the victim-victimizer game. When you choose not to respect someone, you're playing a victimizer. And what you'll do is you'll create victims, and eventually the victims will get sick of being victimized. Then they'll victimize you, and you'll play a victim. And you'll be caught in the snare of victim-victimizer. Reverent respect is the greatest, let's say, it's like an antibiotic to take, against playing the victim-victimizer game. Because if you stay in respect for other beings, even when you're in an argument, you're having a disagreement of ideas, people, beings are more important than ideas. People, beings are more important than things. If we can remember these things and respect the people beingness that is in everything, and choose to find a way that's a win-win situation for all beings, you will find the best way, and you will find the best way even if someone won't cooperate with you, because you can cooperate, but that doesn't mean the other parties are going to cooperate. If they won't, you can honor their free will choices not to, but you can disengage. As long as you do it with respect, you're not going to bring a backlash back to you of disrespect. So it's one of the easiest ways to begin disengaging the victim-victimizer game, is no matter how bad somebody is to you, how much you know that you're right and they're wrong, that's okay. You can be right. And they may never agree with you that you're right, but that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion too. But respect them enough to say, you're entitled to yours too. I'm going to disengage lovingly, but do not treat them. There is no excuse to treat another being without respect. No excuse. That applies to even the most horrible mass murderers. How do you respect a mass murderer? You recognize them for what they are. They're beings that are made out of the consciousness of God that have some really real issues inside of themselves. They are in pain. They are twisted. You might not be able to help them in this lifetime. Sometimes, actually, the death penalty is the best thing you can do for them. It puts them out of their misery faster because they are miserable inside. For them, the people that do, really violent crimes and things like that, they are crying out. They are trying to destroy parts of themselves outside of themselves. They are killing parts of themselves when they kill people out here. They still deserve common, decent, just general, across-the-board respect. The same respect that you would give a flower for being a flower. If we can learn that, we will start to make strides out of judgment, which means we will make strides towards moving into grace, which means we will make strides towards moving into knowing what it means to feel unconditional love. There's a big difference between the need-feed love and the unconditional love. Big frequency difference. One contracts like this, the other expands infinitely. And the more we go into expansion, the more eternal we feel ourselves to be, and the less all the other dramas mean. We just don't react the same way anymore. Okay, how are we doing on time? Because I want to get to the one exercise. Okay, good. Oh, he wants us to leave already? Okay. Okay. Anyway, that means we'll pick up on the. I want to get to the magic words before we leave tonight. All right. Yeah. As is said, that the janitor is here because they want to clean up for tomorrow for the other people that are coming in, and so we'll probably go till 10. We're going to do that anyway. We're going to go to 9 originally because we were, had the hour and it was late. We have a half hour still to make up tomorrow, but. Okay. Okay, so we only have to move the back 3 rows of the chairs when we're doing our thing, when we're, And they can leave now first. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, anyway. We'll get back to these tomorrow because there's a bit to talk about with each one of them. They each pose some challenges like engaged detachment, permitting the all-oneness to be without assigning critique, condemnation. This is very similar to grace, or value judgment, and understanding the isness of and validating the all-oneness. You're simply allowing it all to be. You're fully engaged, which means you're responsible, you can feel, you can let emotion come up and you can get excited, or you can feel, oh, that feels sad. I can feel sadness and feel the depth of the sadness, because sometimes there's a joy at the bottom of the depth of the sadness, because there's a piece of yourself there that just found out what sadness is. So you learn with engaged attachment to go into a whole different way of looking at things. The right versus wrong becomes something different. It becomes points of view, ways of looking at things that create different feelings. So we'll talk more about these tomorrow. We'll get into the attitudes more tomorrow once we're back in the building here. What I really want to get to, this is going to be a riot because I don't even know if I can pronounce these things yet all at once.
We can do the activation of the first cell, much of the first cell on the beach tomorrow.
We could. You don't want to do it tonight? Oh, okay, this one we will do tonight though. Okay, this...
It's really relevant to what we're talking about.
Now, here we go. This is the beginning of learning the secret languages of the ancients. The Manu Technique 1, the magic words of co-creation, embodying the in-breath and the out-breath of God. What this is the sacred Suriya songs. Now the Suriyas are the movements. There are body movements and there are sound tones that go with the body movements that have to do with, now think about old shows about wizards, okay? What do wizards do? They usually stand there in funny hats and usually have a wand. They go, abracadabra, right? They do stuff. They have these gestures, right? These characterizations are built on ancient knowledge that had to do with knowing how to project and pull and push and move energy. And it became embodied in the wizard that points his magic wand at things and makes things go zap, or does all sorts of rituals. Yeah, there's movements that have been glorified actually through the occult arts that were based on, once upon a time, having a knowledge of Suriyas and the sound tones that went with them. It's like Harry Potter revisited, but in the ancient days. My daughter loves Harry Potter these days, and that's all I hear about is she wants to grow up to become a wizard. And I say, aim higher, become a guardian. Wizards are guardian wannabes. You know what I mean? Aim higher. But anyway, really, because like the Harry Potter series talks about witches and wizards. And it's giving children an idea. It's helping in one way and doing damage in another. It's giving children an idea that there are metaphysics is a real thing, which it is, and it's the key to freedom. However, when it's taken into those spaces, it's not a key to freedom, it's key to another prison. It's key to starting playing with the bad boys, and that's, it doesn't work that way. But anyway, there are magic words. The magic words aren't magic. They work in manifestation because they are using combinations of the sound tones that go with the natural vibrational primal currents, the manau and the mane and the ire. Now, this has to do with our breathing too, and at some point we're going to learn how to do these while breathing, and I don't know how yet to say a string of syllables on an inhale. I've tried this. It's like the lungs don't want to do this thing. When we speak out, right? We're sending it out. Do you ever try to speak while you're breathing in? Try it. Just to kind of go, it's a weird feeling. It's like totally backward, There was a time when we knew how to speak while breathing in. In the meantime, while we're trying to learn how to form the sound tones in a string together, we will use them both in the projection current. They will still trigger the backflow currents. But at some point, we would be able to, I have a feeling this might come through on the level 3, the freedom, the dance of freedom ones, where we start to get into more intricate ways of interacting with our bodies and certain types of breathing rhythms that do different things within the body. And as far as speeding up and slowing down time and all sorts of different stuff, I just have a feeling that's out there. But for now, we don't have to worry about learning how to sing these on an inhale. All right? When we sing them, it will set that pattern into activation for the next inhale breath we'll take. So we get to say them on the outhale and then, do the inhale breath. But this is the process of circulation of the primal life force currents. Now, we're going to get them circulating through the atoms of our bodies, those distortions, those little blockages that were on the other diagram. As we begin to use these sound strings that are built upon the sounds of the akasha, the ire, the manau, and the mane, and you use them in the right sequence, which is this sequence here. This is the beginning sequence of bringing back the mathematical coding of the natural sequences of the manau body. So when your cells hear this sound tone, these sound tones, the string of sound tones, they begin to wake up new pieces, new parts of the manau. They begin to reassemble things that were broken down before. They begin to disassemble blockages that don't belong there. The sound tones are the key. Now first we'll learn how to use them. First we've got to learn how to say them all together. At some point this would be something that would be worth memorizing. Like once you can say them and you can get a flow as to how to say them, eventually we will sing them, but right now it's just enough to get them all out in a breath. Because that's a use them as commands, as statements. All right, as if we would speak a sentence. Before we learn to sing the sentence, we'll speak the sentence. Okay? Now the first part of the first one we know, sound 1, this is called hailing the akasha, God force. Okay? This is where we are putting out a frequency to get the attention of the manau, the ire, and the mane, those parts of the consciousness of God. When these sound frequencies, these vibrations emanate outward, there's a direct response. Oh, yes, you called? It's a way to get the attention of those consciousness fields. The parts of you that are in those consciousness fields. It's a way to connect your frequency here to the frequency of yourself that's stationed in the manau and the ire and the mane. All right? The first part of it we have been doing already. It's Umahe Treinahe. What we're going to add at the end of that is Ekasha Umahe Treinahe Ekasha. So that one can be sung. We do it 3 times. I want to try it, okay? All at the same time. All right. 1, 2, 3. Umae Treinahe Ekasha Umae Treinahe Ekasha And try to feel that wave. There's a wave that comes with the Akasha. Let the cells feel it. We're going to start learning to do sound, where we're not just singing up here, but we're going to sing from our cells, where we're going to remember this is a vibration, this is a waveform. If you can't feel that waveform moving through your body, you need more energy behind it. That means you're not putting enough energy into it. Some people speak this way too because they're shy. So shy people tend to not let the energy go out too much, and they hold too much of it inside. You're going to feel that right probably in the back of your tongue is the only place in your whole body where the molecules are going to hear that song. All right? You need to sing and speak it away when you're doing the commands. You need to sing and speak it away that your little toe can hear you down there. And parts of yourself, like the hair clippings from the barber that are still in the garbage can at the barber, is it still connected to your morph field? They'll even hear you and start to dance, right? It's a waveform. It's not always about how loud the sound is. It's how resonant the sound is, how much it is moving through the cells. Sometimes it can be loud, sometimes it can be soft and still move. Okay? Now, when we learn to use these, the first thing is just learn how to speak the tongue. It's like learning a new language. And fortunately, it's not as hard as like if you never did Chinese before and you look at Chinese. Thank God that I don't have to go to China and live there, because I'd be totally dysfunctional. It'd take me 600 years to remember how to do that language. It's so beautiful. They're pictures. I would have to feel it. I would have to put my hands on them to be able to read them, because my brain just doesn't have the programming in it anymore. And I imagine it's like that coming back, to over here. For English, it's probably like that for people who weren't raised with English. With these, it's like these were sound tones that belonged to all of us before we learned any of those other languages. And it may seem like we're learning what is very foreign to us. It may seem like an alien language until we get used to saying it. Now what these are, what you're seeing, is first we have the request. That's the hailing of the Akasha. You're saying, would you co-create with me? And it's done, and it's not, hey God, get down here. I want to make something happen. It's not like that. That's not the attitude. Wrong attitude. You will not get any response whatsoever if that's the attitude you have behind using this song. But if you're saying, I'm requesting the presence of the God force and source. Let us co-create this together. It is a reverent respect thing, right? Attitude is everything when you're using the tones, because if you use the wrong attitude, you're going to get back in your face basically what you're throwing out. If you use snotty attitude, you're going to get snotty attitude back. The mana will be your mirror for whatever you are creating. Now, the second one, song 2, is the in-breath. This is the intention embedding breath. Now, eventually, this is the one that we would learn how to inhale and speak at the same time. That's a really weird experience. I just said inhale and speak at the same time on the inhale breath. It's a very weird way to use the lungs. The whole body is just not used to doing this right now. Part of it's because of the reversals, where it used to be as easy to speak on an inhale as it was on the exhale, the exhale. But what the in-breath does is this is what takes, if you look at the hologram here, this is a hologram, right? An energy field. And pretend that you could actually go and make it go like a balloon, and you can suck it all in and make it disappear. This is what you're doing when you inhale. You're taking a piece of the hologram, and it's going through you and back through your template and back through that transduction sequence, back through the planet, back through, way back out to source. And then when you exhale, you are bringing energy back out into the hologram. This is your manifestation and demanifestation current. Now, what you're holding in your head and in your emotional body at the time you think a thought, every time you inhale, wherever your shadow, your mental body, and your emotional body, and your physical body are stationed, that imprint gets sent back with the inhale breath. Where does it go? It gets sent back into the mana fields, whatever level of them are closest to where you are. If you're blocked and you can't go past D3, you will be sending it into the D3 mana fields, or the ones surrounding the D3 mana fields. The mana fields have one job, to uphold the original intention that God created them a part of itself to be, which was to gift to you the power of free will creation, to create in the image of God itself. The mana gives you the gift. So whatever you decide to put in it, it's like a little It's like watching a seed grow, where you plant the seed and the plant pops out. It's like the soil that you plant the seed in. It's a consciousness, and it's agreeing to taking whatever pattern that you send it, and it will simply turn that into vibration and set the mechanics in motion. This is that element of the universe that will make it happen for you. Don't worry about how to make it happen. There's another thing that makes it happen. It's the part of you that's part of the man-now that makes the thing happen. And then once it is made to happen in vibration, it is the mane current on the exhale that begins to bring it out into manifestation. When, in the old days, we didn't have the DNA problems, you could literally hold an intention, an image of what you wanted. You didn't even have to use external words in those days. You would simply run the vibrations. You would talk to yourself in your head telepathically when you'd inhale, and when you'd exhale, you would use the suriyas very often to do it. And it would be. You could exhale a dove to fly out of your palm, and the dove would be. And it would go off and have the same power in its own way of creation. There were times when we had this power of snap the fingers, which we didn't really have to snap the fingers. It was more like if we wanted to make something move, you could point the finger. But if you're really good at it, you just imagine it moved. And it was. You didn't even have to point, because the consciousness itself would do it. When we begin to use these songs, this is what we're beginning to do, is reclaim our ability to fully bring back the natural function of that current of creation. Because right now it's all blocked and kinked, and there's circles and cycles within it that don't belong in it. It's like knots tied in a rope. If there's supposed to be a nice thin, nice circulatory system where you're moving around through the frequencies of, where you have the life force currents are supposed to, you inhale them, you take a thought back in, you exhale them, it comes out, and you get what you wanted, right? It doesn't work that way here because you have knots in that cord all the way around. There are different, those little dots that run the atom diagram. They serve as knots that literally take that current, twist it, make it do stuff you didn't intend, and it comes out, you have no idea who thought that into manifestation, but it wasn't what I was aiming for. So when we begin to use these, we're setting back, we're taking the knots out of that thread. Now we're going to use this power, whether or not we ever work with these technologies. We use it every single day. Every breath we take, we are using this power. And right now, we're misusing the power without even knowing it. First of all, we're not taught what the power of our breath really is. It doesn't just keep our bodies alive, it keeps our hologram alive. There will be times we learn to do more sophisticated things with the breath that will allow us to jump time and things a little more quickly. Because you can use breaths and shifts in the breath to actually, once the body is cleared and it responds more fully to the primal forces, you can make it hop through certain breathing rhythms, where you literally breathe into being where you want to be, and pop, you're there. Imagine all the airfare you'd save on, I keep thinking, that'd be really nice. Anyway, the second one, this is the mouthful. These are the ones, I have to say this to myself slowly for a minute to see if I can get a rhythm on it before I can even attempt to try to help you with this. You might do better than I would, but the single tones are ire, sha, ra, di, ke, she, ta'a, mira, prana, chi. And there's a rhythm to it. It's something like ire, shara, di, ke, shara, ta'a, mira, prana, chi. There's a do-do-do-do-do-do at the end where you can feel the, there's a do-do-do-do-do, and the command into being, you can feel that in there somewhere. And I don't have quite the rhythm yet. So we're going to have to work with these together. We're not going to sound good with these tonight. I'm not going to anyway. Maybe you guys will sound good. I'm not going to, because I don't have there's a rhythm that it will come in. I think we might have a little rhythm. The rhythm might be a little different for every one of us, because our coding, every person has different coding mathematical templates, so they would work a little differently. But we can try that one again. Let's try these two, like back to back. So we'll go through this one, number 2, one more time, and then we'll come down to number 3 and attempt to do this one. Let's do them just slowly first, just each sound first, before we try to string them together into a statement. Okay? So we'll do number 2. What do you do with my pointer? There we go. Okay, we'll do this one. Ire, sha, ra, dike, sha, she, ta'a, mira, prana, chi. Let's move down to this one. Manu, Ek, Re, Da, Hu, He, Ma'a, Yana, Treya, Ri. That's a Re sound, actually. It sounds like Re, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll try that one again. Manu, Ek, Re, Da, Hu, He, Ma'a, Yana, Treya, Ri. Okay. Treya. Yeah, T-R-A-I-A, Treya. And you know, it's interesting. If you look at the Mira and the Treya, and you take part of the Ra off the Mira, you get my Treya. Sound familiar? Yes. Yes, the Lord Maitreya, or so it calls itself. Believe me, if some of these things were good guys, I'd be afraid to say some of the things I do. You know, like if Archangel Michael was really a good angel, well, I'd be terrified that, like, you know, I'd bring horrible things down upon my head by saying something not pleasant about someone. But you know, no, yeah. I'm trying to figure out what combinations of mess they're using with the names like Michael, and there's millions of people named Michael now. Because the Bible, that was the name in the Bible that was so important. This is...
Who is like God? Not like God.
I know, there's a trick to this. But anyway, the languages that we have right now are combinations of taking pieces of the 15 primary rays and combining them. Some of them are being combined in the natural ways that they normally would be in the original language. The original spoken language was Anahazi. That was the Elohai Elohim language. And all of the languages in this time matrix originally came from there, but there's been other reversed matrix languages plugged in. A reversed matrix language means we're taught an alphabet, and some of those are actually reversed symbols that have reversed tones that when you speak them, and you put words together with those letters and those tones, and you speak them just by the fact of talking, you can keep the reversals set in your atoms. This is what's been going on here. We have languages that are partially built on the natural languages that hold the regular divine blueprint into our body. And then we have parts of those languages that have been mixed with languages from Nibiru and from the Phantom Matrix that have put later letters in those languages that don't belong there, and they have taken out primary letters that did belong in the languages that would release the mana, the ire, and the mane. So our languages right now, we're actually working at a deficit because we're having to translate the divine teachings through a language that has like a skip code reversal. Not everything's reversed. It might be every fourth letter, then every sixth, then every second, then every fourth, then every sixth, and then every second. So it's very hard, and every language here has it. There's not one language that has escaped this reversal mess. That started with the Tower of Babel stuff, where they really got into reversing all sorts of things. They scrambled the languages. Yes. Anything that's on planet at this point has gone through that. It had to do with what they did with the magnetic grids in 3470 BC, when they did a partial shift. Like there was the final stage in their Nibiruan Merkaba reversal plan, where half of the planetary Merkaba was literally turned in reverse. That turned half of the natural language patterns and flow patterns here into reversals. So it has affected everything. And part of our challenge and part of our healing is bringing back the old languages that don't have those. Part of it's almost like catch-22. How do you do that? Because as soon as you try to translate it into this language, it shifts something. So we work with the symbols as well as the sounds. And what the sounds can't do, the symbols will, and vice versa. That's why we... Now, you know you are doing it. There's a seriousness, a posture, a gesture of energy that goes with these that I have a feeling we'll all find a way of holding that, but there is a gesture of eloquence. It's almost like a being that knows exactly how to move its parts. There's a very odd way of how there's actually a flow and a grace that this commands power. You know you are talking to God and you are co-creating with God because you know that you and God are one and that you were never really separated. So you know that what you are intending to manifest right now is God intending to manifest that, and therefore you are speaking it into being, and you know you are. You're not doubting whether you can. You're not wondering if God will let you. There's a difference. You are speaking it. You are commanding it lovingly, with reverent respect to all creation, commanding a creation. First you embed it with this particular tone. And this is the one that once we get good at trying to figure out how to say it quickly all by itself, and then possibly getting the feeling of there's a bit of a song to it. But these are less songs than this. Like this request is much more of a song feel to it, where it moves like this. These are much more like, if you could look at them in energy, these have much more of a tight, like a line of energy as opposed to a wave of energy moving up and down. The request seems to carry a signature that moves up and down like this, do-do-do-do-do-do-do, like a tune. These tend to have, I feel, two currents that move with them. One that comes this way and one that goes that way at the same time. Almost like this very finely balanced set of currents that move. That's very different from the energy signature of the one above it. Now with this one, so this one you will actually not hear as much musical to this. This will be more like spoken tones, where this one will always sound, when it's used the right way, it will sound like more of a wave form. Let me see what this one does. This is the pause breath. This is where the intention is created. You would actually, the sequence to using these, I believe, is you take the in-breath, and then with that in-breath, you'd speak out this. You'd say that line. Then you'd pause. What you're doing in the pause is in-breath, you've spoken the line, and you've activated it through transmitting it out. Ideally, you would do these two acts in the same breath. You would inhale and bring those tones into verbal, where you could hear them with your ears. But right now, because it's a little difficult to do that, we will actually take two steps here. We'll take the breath, inhale, and then the ear shy. This is going to take a while for me to get this. Yeah, maybe you guys will do better than me. Then there will be the pause breath. The pause is still a breath. What happens in the pause is what you just sent home here. You sent it into the manifestation medium, and it got embedded from this breath. Well, it's embedded in the pause breath is where it takes. Okay? You give it enough time. Okay, you breathe it in. Do nothing for a bit. We breathe really fast here. We give no pause time. And that does a lot of things as far as even like oxygen in the lungs and going into the blood and stuff. But there's a little bit of a pause at the top of the inhale and top of an exhale that if you use it, it is the time when you're allowing the energy transfers to have enough time to fully transfer. If you want to transfer, it's like how you can compare it to, I just was remembering trying to pull the graph off the computer today, where it had a lot of pixels or whatever they call those things, and it takes a while for it to download from the computer into the printer, depending on how big the picture is. Well, if you can look at your relationship with your creation current, the inhale breath, is that you're trying to take it from here, where you decided, you set in the screen what you want to have manifest, but now you have to send it to the printer, right? And it takes a while to get the signal. The signal goes on the breath, but if you immediately just go, you didn't give it any take time. You get like a piece of the picture, but the rest of the stuff that was coming in on that current just got blown back out too fast, and it demanifested. It didn't take in the medium. So there's an inhale process, then you verbalize the tone, and do nothing for a few moments. Then, on the next one, again, these would be done before, like this one here. The pause breath would then go to the out breath. The next one, technically, would be inhale and do the sound at the same time, pause, and then exhale and do the sound at the same time. But we're going to do it with, inhale, breath, and then on the exhale, do the quick exhale after, do the sound, then pause. Then we're going to inhale again, because we still need to get air back in our lungs again to bring that current, to catch the coming out current. Okay? So we'd do the out breath. All right, we have our inhale. And then we would do this, the intention manifestation. This is where what we were intending gets manifest. It gets taken from the man-out field, projected on the man-A current, and out into manifestation. If you can see the process here, it goes from here and comes out here, actually, in the key. It goes from the man-A, stations beyond consciousness, and comes out in the key, which is actually D2. All right, now D2 is interesting because we always perceive as solid reality what exists one-dimensional frequency band below our station of consciousness. We've been stuck in dimension 3 state of consciousness for a long time on this planet. So what we're seeing is D2. So this one is very powerful if you want to start seeing things happen. Now, if you wanted to make it happen in D5, stop it there. See, these are, eventually we will learn how to use these as where to place your manifestation. All right? You wouldn't have to use the whole sequence. You start to combine sequences. I want to place it over here and in that time frame and in that dimensional band, this in the past, that in the future, these kind of things. This is the beginning of learning how to do that, by combining the tones. But first, you need to get the sequences activated in your body. So that's what these are. So you have the request, the directive, which you're embedding. You're directing that request back into the God space. And then you have the creation, where it's actually being created back there. You're not going to create it out here. The creation isn't out here. The creation takes place back there in places you don't see in the hologram. And then the manifestation of the creation comes out here into the hologram. Okay? And this would be the last one. You want to try this one? Okay, tomorrow we will have copies of this so we can all go home and play with these and see how long it takes to try to get our tongues around these, wrap our brains and our tongues around them at the same time. All right, this one, sound 4. The out breath is mane, ka, I, ha, hu, ra, hara, maya, mana, hi. Now this is just to show you that Ki is a key sound, okay, that thing over there. Now I remember there was something that they used, that there was, I can remember somebody misusing this sequence here. That they cut this stuff out of it. They didn't use that. They were trying to access the mana from these levels, and they would, with negative intention on it, and they would. You can create negative with the mana force. Now if you use it from its source, its original, mana, if you put in the beginning the original Akasha part, you can't. That's what will align it with divine right order. But you can make messes if you start to play with it on the lower levels, if you don't connect it to the higher levels. And that's how Phantom Matrix ended up being created in the first place. Okay. Now, when we're bringing these technologies out, yes, people can begin to use them to do nasty things. That's known. They've been using them anyway. The metaphysical societies that have been, let's say, the founding cultural organizations of the European and American civilizations in the last, say, 10,000 years, they have been using combinations of very unsacred words to make things happen. And they are beginning to use technologies to broadcast them in silent sound waves. Psychotronics use not just words, you're going to listen to your government, not that just that kind of stuff. That's subliminal programming, boring stuff, right? They are transmitting the frequencies of certain ancient sound combinations that were known to activate parts of the DNA template that had been compromised through the interbreeding of the races, where we picked up Draconian or we picked up Anunnaki code, so we're all like an amalgamation of a mess inside our DNA right now. They're beginning to broadcast tones that are meant to repress the human element of the codes and play up the other elements of the codes, which means the codes will progressively activate to turn us into monadic reversal. Sound is very, very powerful. These ancient things, they didn't even need psychotronic guns and things to project them with. They could use their voices. Some of the most evil avatars were very, very well spoken. They would be able to use the tones, even in normal speech, by the lilt in the voice, or the way they carried the voice. They could use very benign words, but they would be triggering activations with things behind it. I heard a person do this in a New York Expo once, and I didn't realize it was happening when I first heard it. It was a lady, she had a very sweet little voice, and was just very, I was thinking, something weird is happening. I could feel it. My heart chakra was kind of going like this, and I was starting to get constriction in my throat. And I looked at the audience, because I was on a panel. I looked in the audience, and I could see people's bodies starting to react. And they were getting spacey. They were kind of looking at her and going, I was thinking, my God, she's hypnotizing them. What is that? Who is that person? And that's when I saw the beetle inside. That was a person that I talked about before. I saw the beetle inside of them. They can use language as a surface carrier, but underneath it, they're modulating their voice in ways and using tones that are triggering things that will have an effect on the chemicals in your body, on your DNA. And if you're not aware of these things and you're not having enough frequency in your fields of your natural life force currents, you can actually be affected by them. If you have enough of your own natural D12 frequency or even the subharmonics running through your body, you won't be affected by that kind of stuff. But we're very, very susceptible to tone because we're built on tone. Our bodies are built on the void, the sound, and the light. So sound and light and the frequencies of the void can all be used to interface with us for positive or negative purposes. When we begin to use it for positive purposes, we progressively become immune to being any victim of it being used as negative purposes, for negative purposes against us. So we're creating our own immunity as we create our own strength. And we can help other people as well. When we begin to speak these tones, we're bringing them back into life on this planet. They have been hidden for a very long time because these were the tones that would undo the negative ones that the others are trying to use. This place has been a sound war. There's been a sound war going on here for ages, even right down to what animals were seated here to carry what frequencies of sound. Check out the oceans. Find out which dolphins are on which team. It's really interesting. Which ones project which type of frequencies, or which side are the whales on. They've all been seated here at different times to hold frequency and to generate sound that will directly affect the planetary shields and the life field of everything on the planetary shields. So it's very, very deep. When we start to use this, it's beginning to reclaim what was once our common ancient knowledge. We were once masters of the rays ourselves. We didn't need other masters of the rays because we were masters of our own rays. And we didn't try to use our rays to hurt other people. But we entered a game to find out more about what was wrong so we could help fix it. And we fell right down to the bottom of that game so we could then eventually drag ourselves back up with the sound and know how to help the others who had gone down and couldn't get out yet. So we're actually in the middle of divine right order right now, even though it's a testy time, and even though there may be some messy dramas coming our way on a planetary level, this is still in divine right order. It's the fulfillment of an ancient agreement, healing experiment that was being done. We're getting our sound back now, and eventually we'll get the light back that goes with it, and eventually we will have the power back that goes with that. We are healing our bodies and ourselves through these sounds. The end sound tone is interesting. It's part of what we've been using for a while, Ashalam, which basically means I go in peace or I am peace. I embody peace now. There's several meanings of Ashalam, and it carries. It has a certain carrier wave that is a very peaceful wave. But this is, it came through, it has a certain lilt to it. I'm going to find it. It takes me a while to look at these and find them. Ashalam ta eka. Ashalam ta eka shada. Okay? Da. In fact, the shada, when we get into shaddai ure akum tan, the shaddai ure is the pillar of first cause light, so this has something to do with that. Okay, that's using some of those tones there. Let me see if I can try that again. Ashalam ta eka shada. And it's like the D is it's not full D. It's hard to put that sound. You can put a small D, but it's not a small D sound. It's like almost, I should put a DH there, I think. It's like a D. It's almost like a French sounding D, where it has a to it. A little more breath to it. Okay. Ashalam ta eka sheda. Sheda akom ton. I can see that, feel that at the end of that shadai akom ton could run off of this. But ashalam ta eka sha de. How would I put that? How would you spell it? D, small d, a, de. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to change this, I think, to a small d with a small a to get the de type of sound that's closer. Actually, I did what I do sometimes. It's actually this, which is the eh sound, but it's spelled with it. This is where it gets tricky with trying to record it this way, because if it's like where you use a capital for the name of God, capital letter. Well, that's why there's a capital letter in front of that, even though it's not ikesha, ikasha. It's akasha. All right, so that's where it's tricky. There's some faults to this type of notation, like that, where we're trying to show you how to use, like, the big letters mean, say it, full strength. The small letters mean say it soft. Eventually, I hope we get a better way of translating that, but it's close enough to get you to the sound tone that you need to get to. You'll find your own body modulating it. I mean, there are some people that sing, when you sing the Song of Lyra, it comes out different. The people just say that the sound's different, and especially if you have accents. If you're from a different country, and you're learning English, if English isn't your first language, you'll sound completely different when you sing the same tones because of your other patterning. So they've told us that there's a range of when you go so far off that it means something different completely, and they'll let me know where that is. Like when I'm taking the translations from the plates, Ma'a's watching what I'm doing, and I'm saying, I feel it there and I hear it, because sometimes I can hear the tones inside, but there's no sound in the alphabet that I can find that makes that tone. And he'll say, try this. This is the closest you've got, and he'll like down step it for me and say, use a U there, a U-E-I. U-E? What is that? Closest you can get to that tone. Okay? So, anyway, we will work with these some more tomorrow, and I think we'll try, I'm trying to think, it will probably be tomorrow evening by the time we're able to get the finalized books back for you from Kinko's, because they're not finished yet. I have to go, when we leave here tonight, I'm going to go home and be on the computer again. At least I got about an hour's sleep over dinner, because there's more pages to put in this thing. And then we have to be down at the beach at 7 in the morning, of course, which means somewhere in that time frame we have to drop it all off at Kinko's. So by the time we get back, before we go to the beach for the round table at night, before you guys are leaving, we have to pick it up at Kinko's and it has to be done. So we have a bit of a rush happening where that's concerned. But I was going to say I wish that we had more time, because I would try to get these to have everybody have one by the time we go out on the beach in the morning, but that's probably not going to be too easy to do. Okay? All right. We could, okay, 100 of them? 100 of them? Okay, we will try to do that, and also have another copy that's like stapled into your pack, into your chart pack with you, so you don't, if you lose this one, you still have it in sequence. Okay. Okay. Okay, where do we meet? Okay, here's the fun. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Where the little snack bar is and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Okay. Now, does anybody not know where Siesta Key Beach is? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Is there somebody? Is Mac? Are you familiar enough with it here to explain how to get there at all? All right. Who is familiar with here? Who is good at giving directions to Siesta Key from wherever somebody might be staying? Okay. Who we ask you to like stay and talk to the people? Okay. Wait a minute. Excuse me. Yeah, she's good. She's always out on her bike. She knows the direct, things around, but she doesn't go that far. She's not allowed as far as Siesta Key. All right, so how about this? The people who know how to know the area well enough to give directions, if you would, when we're getting ready to go out, if you would like just, where's the best place? We have to get out of the building, right? Because they want to clean and I need to wrap this up. How about like could we meet like right just outside for a little bit? For anybody that needs to get the directions, if the people who have the directions or who are willing to help will be out by like right outside. Will you just go right outside the door by where the ashtray is there? Okay. And 7 a.m. for ordinations, and 7:30 we're going to begin working. Well, as soon as we're done with the ordinations, we're going to begin working with the technologies.
Rows of the chairs and the litter out.
That requires more space, so we have the open air and the beach and everything to do it. There's also going to be the round table tonight. This is different than the round table. I really wish the bird would be done with this conversation. I'm being heckled by a bird. He's like, really? He's louder than I am. Are you done? It sounds like he's laughing.
I didn't know if he was going ha-ha or ma-ha.
No, it's more like a relay station to Series A.
Yeah, I think that was the best. Or interference.
Yeah.
I wonder, I've always wondered what that sound looked like.
You're about to poop on somebody.
Oh, it's one of those black things.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a black crow.
Oh, brother.
What's redemption?
He's trying to get his gang in.
So it's those that make that awful noise. I've heard these outside at the house when I first moved to Florida, because I was originally from Pennsylvania, and there are sounds of things down here that you never hear up north. And this was one of them. It took me weeks to try to figure out what was that. I couldn't even place what animal it might be. Was it a bird? Was it some kind of weird reptile? Because there's weird reptile and insect noises down here. You know, was it a frog? There's some bullfrogs that sound close to that. This is the first time I've seen what the thing was that makes that noise. And it's strange because we had, about 2 weeks ago, we had some really strange things happening where these fleets of black birds would descend on the lawn. It was like a movie, like a scene out of the movie Birds or something. And it was really strange. It was only these black things, these big black crow-like things. And it was almost like it had an omen feeling to it, and it wasn't a pleasant one. I didn't know what it was about, but I was thinking, oh, yuck, there they are again. And I like birds, but there was something about the energy that they were about and that they were bringing. And they didn't make this noise. They didn't make any noise. You could hardly even hear them. They just descended like 100 of them on the lawn and decided our lawn was where they were going to eat. You know, and there's nothing there that's not on the neighbors. So twice they've come. I think it's a spy. Yeah.
Like the energy, though.
Yeah, he sees the
It depends on who it is. Okay, I mean, some birds are out of pure strain matrices. Other birds are planted here from races from phantom. So this goes with plants and everything else too.
Check it out. Anna, there's a lot of these all over New York now.
Are there?
Yeah.
All right.
It used to be way out in Long Island, but now they're all around Brooklyn.
All around Brooklyn, yeah. I get a funny feeling from these guys. I mean, I like all animals and plants and things, and I don't, judge them. But as far as what matrix they're coming from and what energies they're carrying, I don't get a real positive feeling on these big black guys. Yeah.
They don't want us talking about them.
Yeah, I think he just found out what he needed to know. Yes, they do know we're spies. No. See, there was old Native American and other types of tribal people knew that they could project their consciousness into animal forms, and they could temporarily possess the animal body and direct it where they wanted to. And that was the feeling I got with these beings on the lawn. I just had a feeling that who borrowed the birds, Like, I didn't think the birds thought it was a good idea to go there themselves. It was almost like trying to do something to the grids at the house by having a whole bunch of this frequency come and land on the lawn at the same time and hang out there. They hung out there for about half an hour. So that was just like a little thing. Oh, here, another one of them's back again. There's a lot of things that there's a lot more to them than meets the eye, but it's also important to not go off on total paranoid tangents where you start to see things and things that aren't there. So I kind of take it with a grain of salt, but I'm learning to acknowledge it. I used to be in a denial space with it, where psychotronics, for instance. There's other people out there talking about psychotronics, and I've had a lot of times in my life where I was, they attempted to use them on me to try to shut me up and shut my DNA down so I couldn't, pull any more stuff. But it would be the last thing that I would look for as the reason why, I was having a bad day or I was getting sick or something was happening to me. I've learned to balance that now where I'm not anti-looking at what the negative solution might be, but I was so wanting to not get caught up in the trap of seeing the negative in everything where, you take innocent things that have really no negative thing coming at you and you start to get paranoid where you think everything's coming at you. So it's just a balancing thing, but I definitely think they're visitors, they're observing us. I wouldn't doubt it if they have something to do. There's an interesting feel. They're talking to each other now. There's another one. Yeah, they sent another one over. I get a strange feeling that there's a connection with these guys, with the black crow things, that has to do with, oddly enough, Montauk, New York. I know there have been experiments that went on from Montauk where they were combining remote viewing technologies and teaching people to project out of body and to be able to not only go and observe things, but to be able to go and mess with people's astral fields, because they were teaching them how to see the astral bodies of people and how to literally, do psychic attack on them. And I wouldn't doubt if they've been playing with animal as well, as being able to put yourself into animals, because animals could be used for weapons. You could literally, if you could possess an animal, you could cause harm very targeted. You could find the dog of a person, that person's with the dog all the time, and you could, if you were, trying to harm someone, you could actually put your consciousness into that dog and temporarily have it attack. And these are some of the things that the shamans of old used to know that they could do. And now, since they've been bringing undercover people involved with Montauk, people involved with the Philadelphia experiment, people involved primarily with the Zeta agendas, I think have been studying these remote how to mess with people tactics. So I get a feeling that the crows are kind of like the satellites of, it's definitely one of the Zeta group that's involved with this, that's connected to the whole Montauk area. There's even some people that can feel it. Yeah, this is just spontaneous coming through. We weren't supposed to talk about crows, so anyway, we'll get off the subject of crows. But I was just getting that. I do think there's something to the crow thing, so it's something you might want to observe in your life, be aware of, just in case.
Can we treat them with a Maharic energy? Either get rid of that on them or have them leave?
They'll respond more because there's some birds, especially, and I felt this with these guys too, they're very desensitized to certain types of subtle frequency. We'd have to like really blast them and throw Maharic balls at them to get them to pay attention there's actually something moving toward them. It would be literally out of their range, and they wouldn't feel direct Maharic frequency. Now, they can't do anything to us because we already have the Maharic frequency, and so they're not going to hurt us. But what they will respond to is when we get up and start, like when we do the exercise and we're toning. Now, they'll respond to the vibrations of the three-dimensional translation of those tones as it's coming out. It'll create a sound wave field that it'll probably agitate them, and they'll probably go, I would think. It'd be interesting to watch how they react to that. You can try that with other animals if you're ever out. This is something I guess is supposed to be part of the conversation this morning, is to be aware that there are interesting things taking place that you might not realize are there. Like if you start to see certain types of animal forms or certain things that just seem, gee, there's another one of those that keeps appearing in my hologram, right, whatever it might be. For a long time I had moths chasing me, and I still have this closet where these moths, no matter what we do to them, they won't go away, right? Now, it took me a long time to figure out that the moths are associated with the draconian dragon moths, all right? They're little, some of them, not all of them. Some moths are nice. And there used to be one white moth that would appear at all sorts of different times in my life, and like for years. Now, moths don't live that long, but this same moth with a big, fat, hairy white body and these beautiful white wings, it was a big one, would appear in the weirdest places. In the middle of winter, it would be on the outside of my window while I was doing dishes in the kitchen. Moths aren't outside up north in the middle of winter when there's snow and ice, you know? This one was like a protection one. Somebody sent it, so this one wasn't from the draconian matrix, but other types of them are, and you can trace the signature back. Be aware of it, and just kind of in an amused sort of way, and check out what's around you. You know, sometimes if you're noticing animal life or insect life, insects are a big one. Most of the insects, like when you go to Tara, where the grids are straightened out better than they are here, they don't have that type of insect life. They don't have things that bite and things that sting like that. These were put here. You know? And they might like take care of each other and have become part of what's the unnatural food chain here, but they're parts of the consciousness. They're manifestations of the fandom matrix life forms. They put them here to hold frequency. They've also put them here so they have weapons when necessary. You know, a great way to get rid of somebody if there's a shaman out in the jungle that's doing too much good work and it's messing up your grids and you're trying to do something bad. Well, if you have some snakes hanging out there that you can tap right into their fields, you just go send one of your anacondas over there and take care of that shaman. You know what I mean? So there's weird stuff going on. It's been going on all along. In the ancient days, we knew consciously that this wasn't weird stuff. This was some of the realities that can be a part of using your consciousness and knowing how to project it and how to move it. But it's good to get in touch with the fact that those old arts haven't died off. There's just certain collectives that have held that knowledge and have used it, and some of them are not using it for positive. There are others that are using it for positive, but you won't find them possessing animals, because it's a spiritual violation to force your consciousness into an animal body and make that animal do something. That would be just like somebody forcing themselves into your body and making you do something. You can communicate with the animals. You can ask a bird, for instance. I did this once. I asked a bird if, you know, telepathically, I telepathed to it. It was a blue jay. I telepathed to it, could it help me to understand what it felt like to be a bird? Could I move my consciousness at least near it? Or even like around it, but in a way that wouldn't harm it. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know if you're allowed to do that at all. I was kind of like, okay, bird, you know, we can teach each other things. You want to feel what it feels like to be a human? You know? You can try on my energy and I'll try on yours. And I got this really strange, the bird understood me. I just felt this direct cognition coming. And it made like an energy line where I knew I was supposed to follow that with a part of my consciousness. And I kind of spread out in the like etheric body field of the bird, and that wasn't violating it. It allowed me to be there. And the most amazing perceptions came to me. I found out what it felt like to be bird. I could feel this communication taking place. I could feel the bird feet as if I was the bird. And I could feel that the bird has a constant communication with the tree consciousness when it lands on a branch. They communicate with each other. It's like Like we'd say, oh, hi George, you're back again. Yeah, hello, how are you doing today? I mean, they communicate with each other very, very consciously. The birds can feel through their feet the pulse of the tree. Trees have a heartbeat. They have a pulse, and it's like the blood flowing through human veins. They have their own pulse, and they have their own very large awareness. I was able to feel all of this thing through the bird. The bird let me know. It gave me permission to experience an expanded state of consciousness by experiencing what it's like to experience bird. And it had a type of consciousness of its own where it was, in certain ways, more mature than what we call human consciousness, because it didn't have the same ability to get tied up in emotional issues, you know, like to get dragged around by the emotional body. There was just a very astute and crisp awareness of being focused in the moment and feeling the natural energy flow, the instincts flow. It knew where it would go to eat. It knew what it would do. It didn't have to think thoughts in linear terms, but it perceived huge amounts of things. This little tiny bird up in the tree was fully aware, and this was like I was on a second floor apartment and I was out on my porch. There was a yard down below that had this family of cats in the yard down below, and the bird and the cats weren't paying any attention to each other, but when I was in the bird, I was fully aware that that bird was aware of about a 5-block radius of every cat and dog and thing that could eat it. It was just very aware of it, not afraid of it. It just like registered it like radar. It would just have these little, okay, over there, and it knew how to direct its thought, its like its flight path, where to go to avoid the obstacles that were in its way. There was a huge awareness. You can try some of these things sometimes. Put your, Maharic seal up. Try to begin to communicate with the other things that are there. This is part of what the man-out teachings are about. We'll probably talk more about that when we go back into, into the workshop space. But it's the man-out force that is really the common force. We have our Christos self, and then when we go all the way back up, we have the man-out force, the man-out, the ire, and the mane, that are the linking factors. Everything is made out of those forces of consciousness. So we can all begin to understand and begin to feel each other and to feel the environment we live in. We can understand what it feels like to be a sand crystal, to actually make ourselves tiny, tiny, tiny and feel what that sand crystal is feeling. And you can tell the difference in the type of perception. Okay, as a human, I feel things and kind of perceive this way. You'll feel this whole different type of the way consciousness is used in other forms, how the Manau and the life force consciousness expresses itself. A tree perceives things very different than a human and very different than a sand, a grain of sand. It's fascinating to begin the process of getting to know your environment again. And as you do, you're getting to know your body as well, because parts of these things live in your body. There are parts of us that our DNA is directly connected to sand and to sea and to sky. If we begin to play with that ability to move our consciousness out of its very tight little focus here, we begin to experience more of really what's going on around us. And the people on Tara, for example, and the people in Inner Earth, what they do when they just like say walk across the beach, they have an awareness that in its way is similar to what that bird's consciousness was. They are aware of everything that's going around for blocks. They're not thinking about it. They're just fully, crisply aware. It's part of their now moment awareness. If they want to, they could tune their consciousness and hear any conversation that was going on between any of the kingdoms. They could hear insects talk to each other. They could hear birds talk to trees. They could hear people talk to each other if they wanted to. These things are alive and awake in their consciousness. This is the type of consciousness that we're evolving toward. And it's easy to help ourselves with this if we begin by realizing we can move it out of our head where it's stuck. All right, we get stuck right here. We can try, I think, before we leave, after we do the things that we're going to do first, I think we'll try to get to know something on the beach, and we'll be able to pick something. But we're going to do an exercise. It's not a written one yet, but an exercise in consciousness projection where we begin to, first there's a protocol involved. Again, you don't force your consciousness into anything because that would be a violation. You request it to assist you in experiencing a lesson that you'd like to know. So we'll take it from there, and we'll do that after the other stuff I want to talk about originally. Yes?
I communicate with the people. I telepathically speak to them, and they speak to me.
Yep.
And they'll tell me, like, if there's a feather, they're always giving me feathers.
Right. Yep. That's excellent. She was saying that she has a telepathic rapport with eagles, and they even will tell her where feathers are so she can collect eagle feathers and those kind of things. This is some of the things you can develop, and it's very, very worth it. This is when you get the man-out forces that are becoming alive in your body more and more. It's that force that allows you to translate, where you can speak eagle, or you can speak tree, where you can understand each other through direct cognition. The mana force in the body is the medium through which that takes place, through which that exchange, where you don't need a language dictionary or like a little translation module in there that'll translate bird into human. You know, it's because we're made of that same consciousness field. There is a place of direct cognition where we simply can telepathically send information into each other. It is wonderful to be able to go out in the world and know you can, even if you never talk to another human being again, realize you never ever have to be lonely. Look at all the life forms here. You can go talk to the bunnies in your garden and actually establish a rapport with them. Well, they'll talk back to you. And if they're feeling you feeling lonely, they'll come back and keep you company because they feel your lonesomeness and they don't want you to feel bad. We're so taught to just have human relationships here and to look at everything else as stuff, as things for our manipulation. You know, most people think, in the mainstream, we've been taught to look at animals as food. They're just a thing to serve us. That we have, they're not treated like beings. They're not treated like souls. And we feel very isolated. Human beings feel very isolated because of the way they've chosen to act to the environment here. We've had a lot of help getting to those choices that were not good for us. But as we begin to awaken the mana force within us and we begin to awaken our DNA and begin to heal ourselves, part of this healing is rejoining the community of life. And that means reestablishing our ability to communicate with trees and plants and realize that reverence, remember that was one of the attitudes, the 12 attitudes of mastery, reverent respect. We start to reclaim respect for the other beings on this planet. Those trees are people, all right? Sand grains are people in their own way. They have a different kind of consciousness than a tree does. But when we start to interact with our environment in the way we were intended to, where we respect it as a living kingdom of consciousness that is there to interact with us. We're not supposed to just use it. It's not just natural resources. We're supposed to, we rape the land. Our cultures rape the land. They take everything they can out of the land. Do they ever ask? No. Do you ever see the geologist sitting there saying, okay, land spirit, can you please tell me where you would like me to dig for oil? Or please tell me where there's a vein of gold that's ready to come out. Then, and show me the best way to help this. No, they go and they use their instruments and they figure out where something is and they rip the land apart, they drag it out. No asking, no respect, no reverence whatsoever. That's why at some point, if this planet starts to rebel, whose fault is it? Is it Mother Earth having a temper tantrum? I think Mother Earth has a lot of patience, personally. I think if I were Mother Earth, I would have had a temper tantrum a long time before. Get off me! So this is part of what we're going to learn. When we work with Vecca codes, the Vecca codes allow us to activate in the body the currents of consciousness that will progressively allow us to develop these relationships with birds and plants and animals, and also with other beings from other places. Because if you can telepath with a bird, let's say, that's sitting in front of you, you can also telepath with a bird that's in the next county. And if you can do that, you can telepath with things that aren't on the planet as well. You can learn to establish relationships with other space-time periods, with beings who have lots of information that's worth listening to, because it can help you in your growth here. And this is what we're moving into. The contact course really begins with the Manau course, of learning about the Manau in yourself and the fact that it's in everything else, and beginning to develop reverent respect, where you start to say, okay, instead of looking at things as its, look at them as whose. Next time you walk on the sand and say, I wonder who I'm walking on. I wonder if they think the same about me. Do you ever think that maybe the sand wonders who those warm feet are that are on top of it? Do you think the sand is aware? It is. It doesn't think about it. I don't think it really cares what your name is. It doesn't need a name. It feels your energy signature. Sand can actually read everything that's going on in your body just by you having your feet on it. It knows more about you right now than you do. What? Most of the time I found no, because that's the form it's chosen, the consciousness that's making up sand, for instance. It used to be rocks and things, and it chose to go through an evolutionary cycle where it would become sand, and it's a much longer, stretched out type of consciousness, where it's experiencing sensation, and it doesn't worry too much about, it doesn't make a value judgment between a good sensation and a bad sensation in the same way. Now, the earth itself does. If something is being done to the earth that's harmful and violates it, it does know the distinction. But the sand is basically, it's hard to hurt sand. You know, it's beyond a space. It's a type of consciousness that doesn't have a highly developed emotional body attached to it. It's made of very simple molecular structure, and that allows it to have a limited range of perception, so it doesn't feel pain in the same way. So it's very allowing. It just sits there, and you can make castles with it, and you can use it in industry and put it through machinery, and you can walk on it, and it doesn't take any of it personally. It's in a state of at-one-ment. It just allows it, and that's okay. You know, so as far as the sand, you know, does it care? It cares that we walk on it. It feels it. It's an interaction. Our walking on sand helps sand feel its aliveness, but it's a different way than we experience that. This is some of the stuff that's worth playing with. If you have questions about, gee, what does sand think? Find out. First you have to realize that it does, or you're going to completely block with that thought pattern any type of impressions you're going to get. If let's say the tree wants to talk to you, but you don't believe trees can talk, the tree can be beaming you with energy, saying, hello, hello, feel me. It'll have to literally reach out and whack you with a branch before you get the idea. And sometimes several times, because the first several times you get whacked with a branch, you'll think it's just the wind. Because you're taught that trees don't think. You're taught that trees just stand there and grow and they do plant stuff, but they don't think. They're not aware of you. They don't talk, and they would never, like a tree would never consciously take a branch and whack you to say, hello, pay attention, I'd like to have a conversation. I found out that trees do that, even when there's no breeze, to make the branches move. Plants move on their own, even if there's no breeze, to make them rustle, if they want to. I had a plant that continually grabbed my hair when I did the dishes. It was an ivy plant that hung over, over the sink in the window. And it was all nicely tucked up where, nothing was supposed to be hanging. And I'd notice every morning I'd come out and there'd be a thing hanging. It kept throwing itself off the hook. This one small branch of it would throw itself off the hook. So I'd tuck it back up nice and gentle, start doing the dishes. And the first time I thought there was a bug after me. I thought, because it startled me. And it was caught in my hair. I had long hair at the time. And it had literally, put an end of itself, an ivy end through. And it was tangled in my hair. I was like, oh, geez, how'd that happen? Oh, the thing's fallen down again. I put it back up. And then it happened 3 times within about a 5-minute period. And I really tucked it up good the last time, wound it around. And then I got the feeling something weird is going on here. Is there somebody around here? What do we have, ghosts? Somebody's making the ivy move. And then I heard in my head, why does somebody have to be making me move? Maybe I'm making myself move. And I kind of, uh-oh, who said that? And this plant started to communicate with me telepathically. And I was amazed because I'd never really thought about it. I'd never thought that you could do this. I never thought plants would want to do this. And I learned the identity that each leaf on that particular branch of ivy had its own identity. They related to each other like siblings, that they were very distinct. Each leaf was a distinct individual unto itself. And it knew itself as that. And the whole plant itself was a family of individuals. And when leaves die, they didn't mourn them because they knew that that consciousness would come back. But they also knew if you would rip a leaf off before its time, it was like murdering one of their family. And they were very offended by it. So all these things you can learn about. What is divine right action here? Let the environment teach you. It will talk to you. If you want to know what the right way to handle plants is, you need to learn to talk to them, and they'll explain to you if you're doing something that's violating their space. You'll also find out that some plants are nice and some aren't. And this is hard. Everybody thinks, oh, the plant kingdom, it's wonderful, it's all perfect, it's a pure kingdom. Nothing on this planet right now is a pure kingdom in the fact that everything has reversals in it. You'll have plants that were actually originally from Nibiru that were transplanted here as part of the takeover force. And when you start to communicate with them, if you're Anunnaki, they'll talk with you and they'll love you to bits. If you have Anunnaki overlays in your gene code, they'll really have a resonance with you. But if you happen to be an indigo and you're getting your fields clear, you'll find that plant that literally doesn't want to talk to you. It won't, if you try to telepath with it, it'll literally be, it'll stonewall you, or you might get nasty telepathy coming back and say, uh-oh, somebody must be trying to mess with me because I'm getting curse words back from the plant, you know what I mean? Plants can actually curse you. And now, they don't talk in English. They send out a vibration, all right? The animal kingdoms and the plant kingdoms send out a vibration of intention, of their emotional intention. They are aware of you. And you can say words to a plant. It's not the words themselves that they're translating. It's the vibration underneath them. They speak in direct cognition vibration. when a plant speaks back to you, what's happening is you send out your vibration to it, it gets it, it registers just like language does to us. It uses its language, sends it back in vibration, and our bodies have the mechanism to translate that into the English language flow. The same thing if you start learning to talk with the Iani. They don't speak English. That's not their natural tongue. They speak Anahazi, which is one of the ancient languages that is a huge language, has 144 letters in the alphabet, and imagine all the words and sentences you can come up with that, you know? So when you learn to speak with them, they will speak in your home language. If your home language is Spanish, they'll speak to you in Spanish. They speak in direct cognition, and that's how the communication is taking place, and whatever is necessary, whatever carriers of sound get tacked on, whatever languages, they will come naturally. Your body will translate it for you, because we all have translating mechanisms. It works with the Iani, and it works with the plants, and it works with the animals. Now, we'll talk, before we leave, not here, but tonight, before we leave, I'll be talking a little bit about the crystals as well, the crystal life forms on the planet, and about, you know, crystals that we keep with us, and I'll talk a little bit probably about why we keep the crystals with us, because there's a co-resonance that takes place, and there's stuff happening with the crystals on the planet right now that we can help them, because they're in crisis right now because some of the psychotronics that are being run. So we'll talk about that too, and it'll help us when we get home and we're playing with our crystals. We'll be able to clear them in a way. There's a way to clear crystals that you use the technologies that we're being given now to clear our own atomic structure, that you can begin to clear the atomic structure of crystals. But you can't give a gift that you don't have yet. All right? If you don't have these activations happening in your bodies, like after about a month of working with the techniques that we're being given with the Manau codes, we will be able to begin hold our crystals and begin to transmit that into them, and that pattern will be strong enough to knock out any negative coding they have in them. So like the Tibetan crystals that have been compromised and those kind of things that they're using right now to try to cause damage to people into the planetary grids, we can clear these programs, but we can't clear them yet. All right, once this stuff is activated, once the Vecca codes, the Manau codes especially, reset the mathematics in our body while we're running those proper mathematics, we can then clear our crystals. We can also learn to transmit larger amounts of that frequency and help to clear the crystal base, literally the crystal matrix that underlies, you know, the planet. So we can help to clear all the crystals on the planet. So we'll get into some of that. Given to me this morning, Manau Technique 2. It's called the Manau Akasha Salutation. Now, is there anybody here that's not familiar at all with, that doesn't know about the technique called the salutations? Okay. Oh, this is good. Oh, 2 people? Okay, you've never seen the salutations. Okay, they're the Merkaba spin ones where you do, like, to activate, it's not round table, but it's the stuff we learned to do before round table, where we're learning to set our Merkabas on the right spin by using spin dance and certain running of frequencies. Okay, you're not familiar with those. Okay, well, you're going to be familiar with them by the end of this exercise. I will give a little bit of introduction then to that. Now, Merkaba fields, do you know what that is? Okay, good, that's a good start. The Merkaba fields that are around us are spinning on the wrong rotations right now because of the planetary grids. A salutation is an ancient art form that the Breatharian humans used to use to simply, that was how they got their sustenance. They didn't eat food, they didn't have to. They simply would recharge their Merkaba fields in the morning, once in the morning, once at night, doing this process called the salutation, which was using the body itself, running frequency in the body, then using the body momentum and literally spin dancing in order to use the momentum of the physical body to get the Merkaba field spinning faster at their proper rotation. So that is what a salutation is. The salutation exercise is in several places at this point. I think it's in Kathara, and it's in the Kathara supplement, it's in the Templar book, and this version, the new version of it, is going to be in, you know, in the paperwork that, with any luck, you get at the end of the day today. But it's, for people who haven't done the other salutation technique, it is worth getting something, like finding that technique, because that is like, these are all step-up activations, where if you start at the top one and you haven't done the ones before, the top one might not work at all, because you didn't activate the stuff, the grounding base for those frequencies in the body. So we do suggest that this at some point, this salutation can replace the way salutations are done in the other manuals, as long as you've worked through that phase where you've activated the stuff in the body, set the right, see, the other salutation sets the right spin rates. We set the 33 1/3 and 11 2/3 in that one. This one is assuming that's already been set in your bodies. So at this point, most of the people who have been doing round tables or salutations can move right into this one, and you actually wouldn't have to do the other one before. But if you're training a new group of people, take them through for a month, where you can do both, but don't do the new ones first without taking them through the original ones, because Vecca codes won't activate if there's not enough frequency in the bodies from using Maharic Seal enough and from using the things enough. You won't be able, you can do these, but they're not going to do anything. You're not going to get the codes to activate. Now, this was fun. When they gave me this technique, it's called Activating the Density 1 Akasha Transharmonic Merkaba Vehicle, which is the Phase 1, the Manau Merkaba. So this is the beginning of building not only that star tetrahedron shape Merkaba, but this is where we're going to begin getting the mathematical program back awake in our bodies, where we build the inner earth Merkaba, or the inner timeline Merkaba, that allows us to travel not only up and down here in our system or to go over to parallel, it allows us to go into that larger time frame of the inner earth cycles, where we can not just pass through the gates to get someplace else, we could actually go in and sustain our fields there. And this is the one that has 12 planes altogether, 6 on top and 6 on the bottom. We'll talk more about that probably this afternoon, and there's going to be a lot more coming out on that in the next several months, because I've been getting all sorts of wild diagrams that are in pieces all over the place that show how these Merkabas work and how they work in the body as well. We have one on each dimensional level of our body. So there's a lot more to come on this new Merkaba, the Akasha Merkaba. This is the beginning of working with the Akasha Merkaba, but we're still going to just visualize ourselves as having the 2 spirals. We're not going to take it into the expanded shape yet. We'll work on that. There'll be next levels after this. But this one was really interesting because in certain ways it's simpler than the other salutation technique. In other ways it's more difficult. You know the magic words that we went over last night, right? Oh, yeah. Well, it just so happens, and I'm surprised I didn't pick up on this before, we have the Manau, the Ire, and the Mane, right? Frequencies of consciousness. Now, these go with the Merkabas as well. The Mane is the electrical transmitting force that when you're running your top Merkaba, the top one, that's the male Merkaba, that one, you are running Mane frequency. You are running subharmonics, like those smaller breakdowns of the Mane frequency. When you are doing the bottom one, the female magnetic Merkaba, you are running the Ire frequency. So what we're going to learn to do, and this is going to be a riot the first time we do it, because we can't even pronounce these things yet. Maybe you can, maybe you guys have practiced, but I'm looking at these things going, it's going to take me a while to do this. What I'm going to try to do is break them down into like you would word sentences, where the emphasis is, like where you know to break, because you just end up with the blah, 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 blah. There's a rhythm to these, so we're going to try to get the rhythm down more as we work with them. But what we're going to learn to do is learn to use these. If we're doing, like we have lunar and solar salutations in the original course of salutations, for those who haven't been familiar with it. The lunar salutations are ones that would be done at night, where you're pulling more of the frequency, that you're actually pulling more Ire frequency in the evenings. And in the daytime, you're pulling more antiparticle frequency, the solar frequencies, which are more Mane frequencies. So there's a difference of which set of words you'd use, depending on whether you're doing lunar or solar salutation. If you were doing the lunar salutation, you would start with activating the top of the bottom of the Merkaba, and you would use the Ire, saw number 2. All right, out of that list that we got last night, you'd use the number 2 sequence to go with the bottom. Number 2 goes with the bottom, and number 4 goes with the top in that sequence of those songs. And then there's something you do to start. Before you would start activating your fields, you would do the request statement first. It was the first song on your list, and then you would close with the closing song. But there's one that's in the middle that's really interesting. This is what you will do when you stop your spin. In between spins, in this particular exercise, we'll read it to you, and then we're going to try to set it up and do it. Oh boy, it's going to be funny because the tones we're going to have to literally spin with our papers in our hands, going, huh? And try to pick. You'll probably get maybe 4 tones out of the whole string the first time we do this, because we're going to be spinning and trying to read these tones that we have a hard time trying to figure out what they say when we're looking at them sitting still. All right. Now, what's going to get really interesting, we're not going to do this yet integrated with it. The suriyas that we talked about, the movements they would also be put in here. Now, when we get up to do a salutation this time, we're not going to worry about putting the movements, the body movements, in addition to these tones. We're going to just try to get through a salutation that gets the tones in the right place. And we know they're going to be very disharmonic at first. After a while, you'll learn to say these things as a command to yourself, and it'll come easy. It's a repetition. While you're doing the spin for the bottom Merkaba, you would use the ire sound, the one that goes with that would be the ire, shara, dk, she, ta, mira, prana, chi. It's like there's we need to find the rhythm in these things to do it, so hopefully we can find some of that while we're doing it. What would be interesting is when you take these home, and if you work with these, and these are going to be one of the core teachings of the Dance for Life. These are very important, and they're actually going to ask us, when we get our list of 12 actions, of mastery that will help you to, begin to really hold the activations you have and take it higher. You're going to be asked to do one of these every day, not with a group, just with yourself, like a morning exercise or an evening exercise, whichever you prefer. But it will not only set the right spin with your Merkaba, it's going to begin expanding your Merkaba where it can hold the 12 and 12 instead of just the 3 and 3-sided Merkabas. I mean the 6 and 6-sided Merkaba. You will be able to begin building the inner earth Merkaba. But if you don't do it every day, those codes are going to shut down again. So you're starting at square one again. If you don't do it for 6 weeks, you're going to go back to what you were before the first time you ever did it. And you're going to have to wake the stuff all up again. If you do these things and you have the patience to do them, you don't saturate your whole day with it. But once you get used to doing a salutation, you can do it in 5 minutes. You can do it in 4 minutes. Once you get used to using the tones, you don't have to have a piece of paper that you're trying to spin with. In fact, when you go home, putting this on tape, reading those words on tape, once you get the flow, will help. And you can do your salutation with headphones on, with your little, with a little portable, Walkman, those guys, if you want to do it. Or you can literally put it on and beam it into the room, have it on your stereo, put a tape in and just turn it up and sing with it, right? It will help you, and it will also be bringing the tones through. You need to more than listen to them, though. If you're going to use the tape thing, you do need to have them vocalized through you. So you need to sing with the tape, because if you're just listening to them with the tape, it's not moving through your breathing apparatus, so it's not doing the activation. So the principle is really very simple. We're using the things the tone sequences, the magic words that we got yesterday, to begin waking these forces up. The words, the tones, begin waking the forces up. And then we get to amplify the forces, and we get to literally bring these forces into our Merkabas to begin the flow. So we're learning to circulate. Yesterday we learned to activate. Now we're learning to circulate that energy into activation through our bodies progressively. And it is circulating the activation of the Mano and the Ire and the Mane that will begin the process of the atomic healing that this is going to eventually create. And what's going to create the atomic healing? You're not going to do this once and poof, you got all your atoms back to where they need to be. Patience and simple, not overdosing on it, not spending the next 6 years just doing nothing. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do technique for the next 15 hours a day. That will actually have a reverse effect. You'll go on frequency overload and your whole system will shut down. It won't take any of it, right? And you'll go back to where you started before you even tried to, start using technique. Simple daily exercises, and this is one of them. It's going to be asked to be done daily, where you simply build the system. It's like we learn to, since we're very small, we learn to brush our teeth every day, at least once, preferably 3 times, and after meals. We learn to take care of our bodies. We learn to shower and to feed our bodies. This is a way of feeding your body. Instead of feeding the shadow, like we end up doing without really meaning to most of the time, this is helping to feed the healing of the shadow by feeding the natural life force and the natural part of your own template. It's going to be fun to do, I think, once we get them done. There's something about being able to say this whole string of things once we know how to say it. There's going to be a lot more fun than simply spinning around going, rah, rah, rah. I mean, there's only so much you can do with and rah. I mean, we've learned to modulate them. We're going, always spinning, right? But it's still just a very limited tone. Here, the combinations of movement of those tones and speaking those tones are endless, but we need to keep them in the right string. All right, because we're calling on them in sequence, the natural sequence that they're supposed to follow. That's why they were given, in the way they were. They're following the natural sound tones of the currents as they go from top to bottom. So there's an interesting thing about this. What this is going to do is get us into we got a new word that was introduced this morning. We actually had part of the word before, but I didn't know there was a word that that the other one was affiliated with. The new word is called how do you pronounce it? A seeur. It's pronounced S-E-E-Y-O-U-R. That's what it sounds like. But it's spelled S-E, and then it has a little accent mark over the small e, and a capital U-R. A seeur. This is a word for a standing column of sound. All right, that's one of the Iani words, an Anahazi word, meaning a sound form. We hear, on the planet we have rock forms, tree forms. Well, there are sound forms, not just sound waves, but sound forms. That means where sound waves are combined in a very cohesive way that they create objects in sound. All right, a seeur, I have to learn how to pronounce that. A seeur is the beginning of becoming a sound sculptor, where we begin to sculpt. We're not just setting waves, not just moving sound through us, but we're beginning to first sculpt the pillar. We're creating the block out of which things can then be carved, the block of sound, which would be the standing columnar wave that every time you do a round or do a salutation, when you leave behind you a seeur. Now, a lot of times they're wobbly or they're not very strong. The energy's not very strong because we're just learning how to do the activations. This is going to take it into a point where we're beginning to create solidity in sound. We're really going to be able to generate strong, strong sound pillars. And the seeur goes with saying them together confuses me. Suriyas. The suriyas, the movements that we've talked about. Once you set a seeur, the suriyas, I'm just getting totally tongue-tied. The suriyas are movements that you do with your body while you're using these tones of command, right? That will set and it will sculpt where the sound waves, exactly the configurations of the geometricals that those sound waves will take. You don't have to worry about drawing geometrical pictures with sound waves, but there are certain movements of the body, and there will be 12 by the time we're done with the whole set of Dance 4 programs, so there's going to be 3 introduced in each of them. And one goes with each level of the energy. One would be the director of the mana, one would be the director of the mané, and one of the ire. These movements, and they're very simple. All right, I'll qualify that. These are very simple, the first 3 that we're going to learn. And they have cute little names to help us remember them. One is called the rising moon, and that goes with the ire sound sequence. The next one is called the sleeping flower, and that goes with the manau sequence. And the other one is called the flowing waters. And they're very simple. These are upper body ones. There will be a time, if we survive to the last level of this course, when we're in the Dance for Joy, and we're learning avatar integration, where the legs get involved too, and doing more than just spinning while you're spinning. But for now, we're going to learn how to, first of all, get the tones in, to begin to use these toning sequences. We're going to go from doing salutations that had one tone and to having this whole string of them. So it's kind of like doing your own little round table all by yourself, where you have these tones to remember and where to put them. There's a place where, when we use the manau tones, it's going to be when we stop the spin before we go into the next spin for the next set of the next one. And this is the creation point, where you're setting how strong you're able to get yourself through activating the first part of the Merkaba and then doing the stop. It's a stop point posture where you stop the spin before you go into the next. You're not just going to stop. And I know how people tend to stop now, at least in round tables. They stop and just stagger around a little bit because they're a little bit dizzy. And it's going to become important to focus on how you're holding your posture, to be able to hold yourself a little more stable, where try not to, because you get out of, you're done the one spin and you kind of stop and you're going, and your feet are kind of like going like this a little bit. We're going to learn how to hold this with more grace in our stop point before we go in to getting the other spin for the other part of the Merkaba. And in that stop point, we're going to do 3 rounds of the song that goes with the manau, currents. And it's right there that you're going to set the strength or the weakness of your pillar. This is going to be important for people doing round table groups who are worried about people coming in that are actually coming in to infiltrate and you can't tell them from anybody else. If you are aware, and you can teach your groups as we progress at learning it ourselves, and being able to teach round table groups how to hold their power, and to if they do a salutation before they do a round, if they do it at home even, before the fact, they can set their pillars very strongly, their own Maharic frequency very strongly, by learning to use that stop point well. by being able to hold the strength and the integrity of the energy they just generated with the first level of the activation, setting it in to the Manau, and then going in to the next one. This is where we're going to learn how to have a little more control of what we do with sound as well. I'll read to you one part of this. It was kind of interesting. These are some of the steps we're going to do. Now, you pick which you're going to do, whether you're going to do lunar or solar salutation, and that would depend whether you're going to start with the top activation or the bottom activation. It's daytime, so we're going to do a solar one today. That means we would lead with the Man-A sequence of tones. And here's the process. I'm going to read this to you so you get to see there's something a little different, a little more fine-tuning that's happening here than what you would normally see in a salutation. It says, all right, begin slow spinning and slow, low toning. So now we're getting specific. We've talked about it before, but now this is important, all right? The spin starts slow, and while the spin is starting slow, there's a slow, low toning. The voice is soft, the tone is low, and it's going slower. And it says, so you're doing a slow, low toning of the corresponding son, that goes with which level of the Merkaba you're activating. Then it says, continue repeating the son tone, so we're going to repeat it over and over, just like we repeated the over and over. And increase the spin, just like you would normally, and increase the speed and volume of the son tone. So we're going to have to start paying attention. We've talked about it before, but never really made an issue of, okay, what are you doing with your spins? First, it was getting people to not fall over. That was the first accomplishment, and we've done really well. People aren't falling over very much in stands anymore or in salutations. Now that we've got that equilibrium set, now it's an equilibrium that we're trying to balance, that we need to find in ourselves. Where, okay, I'm going to make my spin be slow now. My voice is low and slow, just like my spin. Now my spin's going to start to pick up, and as my spin is picking up, my voice is going to pick up too. My voice is going to get a bit louder, not going from very soft to very loud. You're building a sound wave, and we need to start paying attention to the fact that we're sculpting sound when we do this. So when we make the transition while we're spinning, our spinning is getting faster. As our spinning progresses, there should be a balance, and eventually you'll find it, where as your spin goes, your voice will take a natural thing to start to say the words a bit faster, which is going to be impossible to do this time because we're just learning the words, but you'll learn the words will start to go faster, and they'll get louder as they go, and you will literally create a vortice of sound field. And it's a sound field that if you handle it just right, and this is what the next part I wanted to read, I've watched this happen, and I've tried to help people to shift it without being able to explain it really well. I have watched what I call sound patties drop on the ground. It's the funniest thing to watch after like a round or something, or when somebody's doing a salutation. And you get the sound up there, and they're building the sound field, they're building the pillar. It's starting to become a pillar, but it starts as a disc that tends to go up and go like this around them, or sometimes out in front of them rather than just over them. And if the shift isn't made, there's a way of very gently getting that disc to expand into a pillar, and then very gently disengaging your body from it where it maintains its form integrity. However, if you drop the sound too fast, if you don't do the sound in the right way, like when you're closing around or something, you get sound patties where the pillar goes blip, it turns into a disc again, and then it goes splat on the floor. And they look like falling blobs. they spread out and just kind of go they sink into the ground. These are sound wave forms that were built, but we haven't figured out how to get out from under them yet to leave them standing. It's a very delicate process, actually, and we'll start learning how to do this. Part of it is you have to know your sound tones well before, if you're still stuck on trying to figure out, oh shoot, where'd it go? I'm getting dizzy trying to read while I'm spinning. That's going to disrupt you from being able to pay a lot of attention to it right now. But ideally, what we're aiming for is to get to the point where we become very aware of the relationship between our breathing, our movement, and our sound, and how that can be used to build different forms of wave current, and then what we need to do for those wave currents to sustain themselves. Now here is the beginning of learning how to pull yourself out from under your sound pillar so it stays put once you're done, which means you still have the frequencies activated, and it also means you've left a pillar. After you leave the beach or wherever you've done your thing, you've actually left a sound form there that you can go back to. If you do your salutations in the same place every day, you will progressively amplify your own development if you learn how to keep your sound from turning into a sound patty and falling. If you can keep it into a pillar, you will create a zone in your house or in your space where this will just by stepping in it. It will amplify it. It'll set a Q zone without even having to go through the steps of setting a Q zone. If you learn how to hold your pillars, all right, and hold, you know, and once we learn how to hold the pillars, then we can learn later, the later suriyas and things will be teaching us how to, now that you have your block of sound to sculpt, what do you want to make out of it? We'll be taught how to make things out of it, literally, by sound. And this is how they got, like, the pyramids built and those kind of things. You have to know what kind of sound wave to send to lift a block that's X amount of tons. They're sound forms. You're creating forms that are thought forms, and you're using sound as the medium. So this is the beginning of learning the control of that process, because right now we create sound all the time, but we create kind of mutant sound forms. We create lots of plops all the time. You know, like just our speech actually does that. We'll be speaking like this, and there's the line of our English language or any of our languages that are not in reversal, that make a line of current that actually makes a sound form communication, and it drops pellets. These pellets are little patties that are falling from the reversals. So we're literally losing energy every time we speak because of the way languages work. When we begin to work with these tones, which are the closest translation to the pure tones that you can get on the planet at this time with the reversals that are present, we're beginning to be able to sculpt again, sculpt with sound. And how this goes is after you've got your spinning, all right, you start slow spin, slow low toning, start to pick up your spin, and gently, not abruptly, gently pick up your volume and speed of your toning as you go until you can begin to feel the building of the energy. We need to start paying attention to what our bodies are feeling. At first, when you start these things, you're probably so distracted by trying not to trip over your feet and trying to remember what the heck the words are, see them, that you don't even have time to be sensitized to feel what the energies are doing. So a lot of people won't feel anything when they first learn this stuff. But as they go and they get more confidence where their feet are doing what they need, and they can almost like spin on autopilot, so they don't worry about falling over anymore, they're not staring at their thumb anymore, they don't, you know, they've got that skill, then you have an ability to become more sensitized, where you start to become aware, shift your attention to not falling down, you already got that, to going into, okay, what am I feeling? What is the energy doing? You can start to pay attention to what the energy is doing. So once you feel a certain level of energy, this is the ideal that you're aiming for, to where you can get to the point where you can build your sound and your spin together, then you can have enough confidence in your body and your sound working together where you're not going to fall over, that you can think about for a minute while you're doing it. Try to feel the energy. What is it doing? You'll be able to feel if it's flopping. Sometimes your spin will create your Merkaba field going like this, and you'll feel like it's like the bottom one especially does this. It'll wobble, and you'll feel like some hula hoops going around you. Like, what is that? Oh, wait, I got a wobble here. That means you need to get your sound and your spin a little more coordinated, because if they're not coordinated, you will get a bit of a wobble. Now, when we're working in groups and we're working with the Iyani, they're helping us to hold frequency. So if we're wobbling, we were wobbling all over the place. Our round tables wobble all over the place. But we're having help to sustain their form by the Iyani groups from Inner Earth. We need to, at some point, learn to be able to do this ourselves. And this is the beginning of that training, of learning what we need to pay attention to and what creates a stable sound field and what creates an unstable sound field that's going to fall apart and it's not going to do what you want it to do. So we get to the point where, let's say, we're feeling the energy build up. We got that far. We can begin to feel, are we wobbling or not? Okay, and if you're wobbling, try to feel whether your movement is going faster or slower than your sound, and try to just bring them up into the same range where you can, there's an equilibrium that happens between how fast you're spinning and how the sound is going. Sometimes you'll get your body spinning too fast, and it's actually throwing off your whole equilibrium, where you're starting to get yourself dizzy and you don't quite realize you're doing it yet until you stop and fall down. Slow down your spin a little bit if you find yourself feeling like you're wobbling. If you feel like the field you're creating around you is wobbling, just gently slow. Don't stop abruptly. Slow it down again, and then try to pick it back up. Go back to where it got out of whack. Go back, slow it down, come back and pick it back up again, and try to keep the sound balance and the movement balance going. You'll get a feel for this. This is why it's important that to use, now these technologies are being given to us. They're being given to us so we'll use them to help ourselves. If we do this stuff every day, it's not as hard. You know, you spend maybe the first month just going, oh no, not that again, until you start to develop. You know your tones. You can go in without looking at your paper. Ideally, we get to the point where we could do a salutation like breathing. We've got it. We know it. We understand it. That means we know how to command the Manau forces and the Ire and the Manau, Ire, and Mane in our bodies without having to pick up a book. This means we're integrating what we're learning. not just having our mental bodies learn it and bounce it around. All right, this is where we're beginning to really focus on integrating. Now there's a really neat thing here, and this the next step, that has to do with getting your seer, your pillar, your seer pillar to stand and not fall. And it has to do, and this is, they just taught me this, it has to do with the spin stop point, or the stop spin point, however you want to call it, the point where you're going to stop spin. There's something you need to become aware of doing right there that's either going to make or break the sound field you just set. It's either going to make your thing turn into a pancake and fall on the ground, or it's going to help it stay and hover. And it'll be like a sound field that's actually going, and you can actually move away from it and it will still do that. You've created somebody of sound. You've created a body of sound that is a body of consciousness. It's a co-creation. Now, you begin to slow the spin and the toning speed like we do in a salutation while retaining toning volume. Now they're going to have us do this way. We begin to slow the spin and how fast we're saying the words, but we don't drop the volume. We don't bring the sound down. Now there's different ways you can create other forms by bringing the sound down, but what they're going to teach us to do to build these pillars that stand, these sound forms, is they're going to have us slow the spin, slow the speed of the tones, but keep the volume at the level that it was, instead of going down like we could. That makes another kind of sound wave. For creating a seer, or an actual pillar, a sound form that you can then do something with and put it someplace, you need to keep the frequency in. So you keep the voice, saying the words more slowly as your spin slows, but keeping that volume up. And round tables is tough because you get so tired by the end of a round that you just want to like kind of stop singing, stop spinning, and go to sleep. And the voices tend to get slow, and it's dragging. These are things that if you want to get good at being a sound sculptor, and that's where you start to get like your really directive, creative power back, where you can make stuff happen with sound. This is where it's discipline. It's learning how to discipline yourself to pay attention to your energy and do what's going to make it work. There are certain things that will build sound forms and certain things that will tear them down. And if we pay attention to what we're doing, we learn how to have that power selectively, where we can build when we want to and tear down when we want to, and not get the opposite effects. Now, we have our spin, we're slowing our spin, and we're slowing the toning speed with it. It means the words are being said more slowly, but at the same volume that we got it up to when we were doing fast spin, right? We're going to slow the spin to a stop. And at the stop point, it's called the spin stop point, we're going to immediately and abruptly stop toning at that higher volume, okay? We're not going to tail off. We're going to literally create the field, and when we hit the stop point, we're going to release it. It's like we built the field, built the field, built the field. It's still attached to our field. When we stop, once our Merkabas start to slow down, it's going to tear that field apart. So what we need to do is literally separate the body connection from it so it can still spin and have a life of its own. And this comes from, and this is going to take coordination. We're all going to be tripping through this. Even when we do it individually, we're going to be playing with it for a while. Okay, wait a minute, where's my stop? What am I supposed to do at my stop point? Oh yeah, that kind of thing. And these are living exercises. I mean, until you really integrate them and remember the steps, if you have to stop what you did in step one, or to find out what you have to do next in step two, you already let something different happen to what you created in step one. You can't, if you stop your Merkaba in the middle of a salutation, you've stopped your Merkaba. You have to start your salutation over. So these are things we need to learn, and if we do, it's worth the energy put in. You will find expansions happening just by this technique alone, that you will start to really, really become aware of a lot of things, a lot of power that you have, a lot of knowing that you have that you didn't know you had. And this is the beginning of becoming a sound sculptor, a creator, a true creator that is able to take thought. At some point, we will be taught, after we know how to create these fields, we'll be taught about the solids, let's say, or some people call them the Platonic solids. There are certain forms that are used to create specific types of things. We'll be taught how to first generate the sound waves. Then we'll be taught how to generate the specific types and shapes of sound waves. Once you've got the waves stable, then how you put them into different shapes, using different suriyas and things, to help fulfill certain intentions, to help you manifest things you'd like to manifest, but in ways that are in harmony with the Christos. If you try to use this stuff in negative ways, it will eventually come back and bite you. So that it's not worth having any negative intention or any manipulation intention toward anybody. If you want to go mess with somebody with sound waves because you're trying to make them love you or make them give you money or something like that, you're going to find yourself creating lots of nasties that are going to do it even worse back to you. So it's not worth even engaging it that way, but you guys know that already. So we're in this exercise, we're beginning to be taught about the need for the sensitivity. If we're going to become master builders, we have to learn how to make our bricks. And our bricks are the sound fields that we're generating. If we can get to the point where after a month or two we could do just this exercise well, like as individuals, you will have increased by about 3 years' time your own activation levels and your own frequency holding capacities. They're not hard exercises. And this is short. I mean, you've seen some of them. There's like 5 pages and 46 steps. This isn't one of those. There's 10 steps. That's all. In 1 month, you would be able to make huge, huge strides. All right. It depends on what you have in your, what you've got to start with. If you have karmic issues coming up, that will slow, whatever your karmic miasmic thing is, that's going to temper how fast you can develop no matter what you're doing, because your own oversoul is going to watch out to make sure you don't kick up too much frequency in your system that's going to bring too much of the miasmic imprint out where your body can't tolerate it and makes you sick. So there's always this tempering factor. And then most of us want to get to the finish line before we even started the race. Like, if the finish line is inner Earth getting through a Stargate. Yeah. We need to learn to appreciate the process as well, and to realize that the moment point, this is now, this is where your point of power is. So every time you do a salutation is just as important as any time you might later use what you learned how to do to go through a gate. Doing this every day is just as important. In fact, it's more important than even brushing your teeth, because what's more important? Teeth eventually get old and fall out, and eventually if your body dies, your teeth are going with it, right? If you only have time to do one thing, I'd suggest a quick piece of mint gum and a salutation if necessary. We have so many excuses why we can't, why we won't, why we'll do it later. I'm terrible with this. I mean, there's certain things I'm trying to clear stuff. I smoke cigarettes. I cannot continue to do that forever. I know this, right? I know it's an old pattern that was developed, and I know the reasons why it was developed. It was actually adopted in the younger days because when you smoke cigarettes, it creates etheric mucus in the astral body. It creates a buffer field that, at the time in my adolescence, I was under attack psychically. The Zeta groups were after me, and they were trying to stop the DNA activations because they didn't want me to grow up and remember who I was, basically. The cigarette smoke at that time, even though it's not great for the body, it sustained the astral field bubble. So there was like a blanket where psychotronics had hit it, but it would diffuse it so it didn't get into my body or my DNA template. That's why we started smoking. And it was very deeply ingrained because of that. It was like the body got used to that as a survival mechanism. And I have that pattern to clear. Now, eventually, we all have certain types of patterns. Some of them are idea patterns, not like smoking, but some of them are ways of looking at things that are doing the same thing, that are creating damage in the body that's not helping you. So we'll be clearing this stuff as we work with these. But if you don't use excuses, if you really realize that if empowerment is what you want, if you really want to find out what it means to be a master, you need to do the legwork that it takes to be a master. You don't learn to ride a bicycle by looking at it leaning against the side of the house. You learn by getting on, falling off maybe a couple times so you get your balance. You don't learn to win a marathon race by running one time, by going out and entering the race and getting really disappointed when your muscles all lock up a third of the way through and you fall down and you can't even breathe. You're not going to even get to the finish line. We need to cultivate the patience of an athlete when we're doing this. It's like being an athlete, where we're progressively going to work with this body to get it to its highest point of performance. And we're not going to do it in a way that we have to compete. This is like being in the Olympics, but it's not a competing Olympics. You're not going to compete against somebody else so you can be right and win and they're going to be wrong and not win. We're going to help each other with this. It's a cooperative. Once we are able to generate a sufficient amount of frequency in our body and hold these forms, there will be ways to use these sound forms to literally not only create immunity, but to clear anything that you've picked up along the way. We'll learn to use these sound forms to heal the miasmic pattern. But while we're generating these, even when we do Maharic Seal, if we do Maharic Seal, even just a lame Maharic seal, where you just manage to, you know, kind of limp it up there, and you know it's really weak, and it's kind of going like this, but at least it's there, at least it tried, you know? Sometimes when you're tired, it comes out that way. I mean, if you look at your pillar, sometimes it's bright and glowing, and boy, you can feel the frequency, and other times it's like, it looks like a ghost image. It has like holes and streaks in it of dark stuff. You can see where the frequencies aren't holding, right? Other times it looks like it could crumble, like it could, it almost looks dehydrated, like the molecules that it's made out of could actually go and it'll break like glass that you could hear it shattering. You know? There are different conditions of your energy when you're using it. If we can work with building these, and this is going to be easy, instead of doing a lot of other techniques, this is going to be one of the feature techniques that's going to be something that we use all the time, that we'll take with us into the Dance for Freedom as well. It may be, there'll probably be more added to it then. But oh, it's 10 o'clock now. Okay, so we're gonna be a little late then, I guess. Okay. This is that extra. I know. This is the extra half hour that we had to make up from yesterday. All right. So I'm not going to talk too much more about it. We're going to try to do it. All right. Don't worry about how bad this is going to be this time, because everybody's going to say, wait, what was that? What do I have to do? Because there's a lot of people. And as run, you know, you're going to run this, right? Like you run the rounds, please? This one? No, please, you do this one. You do this one, please. Please, you do this one. You're better at this. You do this one. Come on, you said you'd help me. You slept more than I did.
Let's go.
Would you please? You're going to run this, right, love?
Don't be nosy.
He will. He's master of the rounds here. I'm master of the computer board here. He's master of the rounds. I can get it two-dimensional on paper, but this person brings this stuff to life more than anybody I've ever seen. Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
He'll run it. Okay, so we're going to get down to the thing. You know, when I watched him, when I watched, I mean, I understand like round tables, and you know, it came through, you know, it was a transmission that I translated and everything, got all that detail. I understand how to do them. I can see the stuff really clearly in my head, but when it gets out there and you have all these bodies that are chattering with each other and saying, where am I supposed to stand? And you're looking at this thing with hoops on the ground, and you're trying to figure, what was number what? I look at, there are people, he was just amazing. He figured out the hoop setup after having to do it once with no hoops and trying to just line up the angles between bodies. Yeah. He came up with the hoop idea, which was perfect, because at least all right, you guys stand there, you guys stand there, there's the, you know, the platform. But how he was able to organize that, I'm afraid to all by myself right now run rounds, because I'm spending time doing all the written work all of the time. I haven't gotten up there and been able to do it. He's amazing with what he can do, and you guys are getting like that.
Selling the soap.
No, I'm just so proud of you. I look at that and say, I can't do that yet. But I wanted to also say that I'm proud of the other people that have been running the rounds. You guys are doing it as well as he, you know, like he is. You're running rounds better than I could right now. Okay? So I just want you to know that. I can tell you more things about the rounds than you know, but as far as getting people's bodies where they need to be.